4, referee 1.
Referee 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Happy with
입니다. 이 대국은 중국 룰을 적용하며 단식 10초 3회입니다.
Good afternoon. I am today's referee. The match will be in Chinese rules with 7.5.
돌을 가려주시기 바랍니다. 돌가리를 맞춘 쪽에서 흑백을 선택합니다. 이세돌 구단 뭐 선택하셨습니까? 흑. 네, 돌가리 결과 이세돌 구단이 흑, 알파고가 백으로 대국하겠습니다.
As a result of Nigiri, the Sedol, and AlphaGo is white.
대국을 시작해 주시기 바랍니다.
Please start the game. Hello and welcome to the Google DeepMind Challenge match live from the Four Seasons in Seoul, Korea. I'm Chris Garlock, manager. So the match is finally...
It started, yeah.
We've been waiting months and here we are.
It's very exciting. Just one move so far, but it's already different from the games played in October because it's a different opening.
For the duration, I want to give a shout out to all of the folks watching the up late. So we appreciate that. I think I can guarantee that there won't be a wasted moment for you. It's going to be worth it. History is really being made here. I think. Can we guarantee that?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Just also a reminder, you can reach us on the AGA's Twitter feed. That's the AGA at the AGA. To the extent that we can, we will try and respond to your questions and comments. Really electric.
International tournaments as a player, actually. And there is a lot of press, but usually they're press who are accustomed to be doing Go events, and there's a smaller number of people and not so much excitement. And so it's really a lot of excitement I see here.
We had a press conference yesterday, packed. I've never the bank of cameras from the world press was like a storm of lightning, and it was amazing.
It was a lot more attention than Go usually gets.
Yeah, so it's a great opportunity. No matter who wins, it's a great opportunity. So I know I can tell you're already itching to. We will have a number of different things that we're doing over the course of the commentary. We're going to try and do a little bit of Go history time, so welcome. We'll also be getting fairly deep into the analysis because that's what Michael does.
Yes.
So again, we'll get to that. But already with just 2 moves played, I think you've probably got, you studied, of course, the
Yeah, that's just all the information I have is the match played in October with AlphaGo against Fan Hui. So 5 months, it's had 5 months to be playing, well, is it millions of games? I don't know.
It's
I don't know
a really
exactly how
large
many games
number.
it's supposed to have played. A larger database. Since it's apparently changing, teaching it, except for the games that it's playing, and usually playing against itself, it's probably sort of so that's something I'm going to be looking for and hoping for, sort of. That's going to be really interesting.
And let me ask you to sort of handicap it, as it were, in terms of for Lee, what do you think he's going to be looking for? I mean, he knows he's
You
playing
mean weaknesses?
strengths, weaknesses, strategy. I mean, he's up against a machine. The machine's not going to get tired. It's not going to get intimidated. He's, you know, they said that when they had the press conference
Almost all
yesterday.
Go players are intimidated when they play against track record, which is pretty spectacular. And also the fact that a top player, when he gets so focused on the board, does become a bit intimidating. Worried, but that's
The person who's replaying the moves for AlphaGo.
Right, yeah, the operator of the computer might be a bit. That AlphaGo is playing star points against 3-4 points, which is actually consistent to what it was doing in October. In October also it was playing star points against 3-4 points. And when the opponent played 2 star points, it played a star point and a 3-4 point. So it was sort of playing a game of balance with white and trying to make for a relatively peaceful game. Which seemed, at that time, it seemed to be the strategy of AlphaGo. And I was wondering if that would change. For the time being, it sort of looks like it's staying the same.
So for Lee going up against this machine, you know, the AlphaGo, which of course, you know, was quite strong back in October, kind of mix it up a bit, or?
Well, AlphaGo was probably already professional strength, novice professional strength in October. But at that time, maybe, but we don't really know how it's developed in 5 months. So that's what's going to be interesting, to see how it's changed and developed. And I think that's all the information that Lee Sedol has also. He only has the 5 games played in October. And from that, just looking at that data alone, he has nothing to be worried about.
Right.
And so he just doesn't know. And if you ask me, his best strategy, which is a very aggressive, fast-moving game. He's well known to be a very fast-moving opening and middle game fighter. And he really fights a lot throughout the middle game, especially in the late middle game also. But he starts early in his fighting. And so also looking at the October games, that seemed to be something that AlphaGo wanted to avoid. And so in these 5 months, I'm sort of expecting that AlphaGo has probably developed more immunity to that kind of attack.
Interesting.
Yeah. But I don't know. That's just a guesswork.
This game. So how I mean, and this seems like they're playing at a pretty...
This is a commonly played opening. It's what Sedol is probably going to play something on the upper side now, the top part of the board. And it's a very popular opening. And so it's going to be in the database that AlphaGo uses. And there's going to be a lot of games in the database that have this opening. But it's important that AlphaGo is playing 4-4 points. That's the 2 star points. You can see that the white stones have covered the 2 star points on the left side of the board. And the joseki is deriving from it. Those are fixed corner patterns.
Right.
Are relatively simple and not so numerous as the joseki that start with a 3-4 point. And so it's very unusual.
Aha.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Okay, so shall we go up on the board?
Yeah, let's go to the board. Absolutely. Let's take a look.
Okay. playing a 4-4 point. So that was just a completely different style. So I didn't have a chance to see what AlphaGo would do against a 3-4 point. But in those games, when Fanhui did play a 3-4 point later, then AlphaGo was responding with a 4-4 point.
Okay.
And when Fanhui played a 4-4 point, AlphaGo was responding with a 3-4 point. So this white is one move behind in the game. White avoid getting into a tassel too early and trying to play a balanced game. And so that's sort of the tactics that.
For folks who are just coming to Go for the first time, actually, if you just leave those down there for a sec, you will almost always, with rare exceptions, find the first moves, as in this game, played in the corner, which is.
You play in the corner because one of the objects of the game is to surround areas. So this, for instance, this area is already beginning to look sort of like a black territory. When you get some more stones in the area, this is going to be looking more and more like an area that is controlled by black, and this becomes black's territory. And as this happens, it becomes apparent that we have sort of two natural walls here, because naturally you can't play a stone outside of the board.
Right.
And there's no entrance from this side for white. So white would be approaching this area from either the left or below, and black is sort of blocking that out gradually.
We'll see somebody play in the center because there's just
sometimes
every once in a while, but it's not usual.
Yeah,
move.
that would be the exception.
Right. So it's side, corners, sides, center, essentially.
Right. And so that's the theory that's been around for a long time.
Thousands of
years already. So it'd be interesting to see if some computer program might come up with something different. Interesting to see a computer program which eventually will not be influenced so much by human, could come up with something that's brand new. That would be really interesting. And well, in this game, Lee Sedol started here. We might as well try to catch up just a little bit.
Okay.
White played the star point. Again, White's playing a relative in the opening. It seems to be consistent with what AlphaGo is doing in October. So far I haven't seen any big changes.
Okay. And that's one of the things that you're looking for. We may get a chance, we may not, but you studied those 5 games extensively, and so you really have a very good feeling for that. And there's certain things that you're going to be looking for, right?
Well, yeah, one of them is a difference in playing style,
okay,
which is, as I say, I haven't seen yet. Another thing is a difference in strength in the early parts of the game, which was one of the things that was probably still working on, which is and this is going to be a big challenge because weak opening.
Yes,
and
I wish I had his weak opening.
He was probably the only person who actually believed.
Not his opponents.
Yeah. But basically what he was really saying is that he likes to fight.
Right.
And so his opening tends to be very short and gets very complicated quickly. And so he gets into very difficult situations that are actually difficult for his opponent also. And so he defined that by saying that he had a lousy opening, which just doesn't register.
Right.
But the fact is that since his opening is so aggressive and very difficult for the computer to work with its database to handle that, because bang, you immediately come up with a brand new position. This 3-4 point to this stone is used in various openings. Like on the upper side, since black has already invested one move here, black usually wants to do something that has some kind of a loose connection to that stone. So black would usually, this would be called the miniature Chinese opening.
Okay.
And it's a very popular opening. It's an opening that is trying to sort of loosely connect these 3 stones on the upper side to make a structure here, which eventually will either turn into a black territory, an area that black controls, or if white invades, then it will be a fight in which black has more stones, or more, you could say more, to give black an advantage in the fight. So white has since white doesn't want to start a fight that is disadvantageous, there is a high possibility that white will end up allowing black to surround this area. So it's a kind of a loose territorial framework.
in the opening, it's a little bit of a dance, as sort of I take this area, you take that, and it's not taken, but you sort of sketch out this area, and we go back and forth until maybe your area looks a little bit bigger.
We were saying at the beginning, there's a rule of thumb that you start in the corners and you spread out to the sides, and eventually you will get into the center. But and apart from that, there's also the fact that you like to play in areas that amount of width, empty space. So like if you're thinking of playing along the sides, this side and this side tend to have more space. Whereas this side is already, it has one stone. You can see that with 3 stones, white stones sort of oriented to this, it's going to be attacked pretty quickly. And it will be a fight in which black will have to play defensively.
Okay.
If white jumps in here, then you can see that there are black stones on either side of the white stone. Even if black does something like this, relatively less room to move around in, to form a group that can. So white usually will come into this side. You can see that people are playing with some distance to the edge of the board. So this is called the third line because it's third from the edge of the board, and this would be called the fourth. That's why we're calling it the 4-4 point. It's the fourth line from the edge of the board. You can even see it here because of the numbers. So this would be a move on the third line, which is pretty typical. And then black would maybe be playing some more moves, maybe to try to attack this stone, because black does have a majority of stones here. Or black could be moving to the lower side, which is also a wide open. And the good thing about playing in areas that are fairly wide open is that with one move, you sort of control more space than you do if you're playing in an area which is already sort of partly filled up.
Okay.
So that's why players tend to play in wide open areas. The reason move potential to be weak, so black usually does something to sort of reinforce this one stone. But instead he plays here. And already this is probably outside of the database.
Actually prepared?
Well, Lee Sedol does stuff like this sort of naturally.
Just like normal.
This is what he does without even trying.
Okay.
But I wouldn't be surprised if he, just to take one of the powerful tools that this program has and make it maybe less powerful. Yeah. Because this AlphaGo does actually, it has a database which helps it choose moves to start with, and then it has other algorithms that, including Monte Carlo, that help it actually read out the position to a certain extent.
And Monte Carlo is a search tree where it searches for the...
So they would get the best winning percentage.
One of the keys here, one of the reasons that this contest is so interesting is where that position is maybe, I think, 20 different
there are 361 playing points in
right.
Go. Since the board is symmetric and you start with an empty board, actually it's just a triangle like this that avoids all the symmetrical moves. And so it's 55 possible first moves. But then as soon as you get a asymmetric position like we already have here,
right.
then all of the moves are unique. They're all different now because of the stones already placed on the board. And so you already have something like 350 moves that are all different. They all lead to a different. If you have 50 moves, 300 moves, potentially more, to finish the game, it's too much to calculate even for modern people. Are more than the number of atoms in the universe. It's numbers that I don't really understand, so I'm not.
It's just really large numbers.
So yeah, it's obviously a very large number, and write about it, the algorithm that seems to be working very well, actually.
So the evaluation is a thing where the computer evaluates the status of the board to try and figure out what's weak, and it a little bit has to do with what you were just talking about. What's the status of the overall
I think
board?
it probably does that, and also it makes a what percentage. The difference with a position that is not finished, so it doesn't have to read all of the variations at the end of the games, but it actually just takes the, I'm just taking this from the what Google published.
Sure.
So it's not really any news, but it reads it makes variations to a certain point, like say 20, 30 moves, and then it can evaluate it, which takes away hundreds
took so much longer to even come close to being able to figure it out because they just couldn't
Yeah.
apply the brute
Well,
force
people
to it.
tried brute force and it didn't do anything. And then they tried making rules and
That didn't work.
Yeah, it didn't really work either. Okay, so already both players, usually in a position like this, I would expect white to be playing maybe something like this. And first is usually considered to be the bad order.
Because
Because after, say, an exchange like this, black will probably answer here or maybe here. After an exchange like this, if white plays this, this is an exchange that white will sort of like to play at some point. Black will answer it anyway. Black has a choice of playing here, which gives black a very resilient, strong connection, or playing here. And there's pros and cons to these two moves. So it's a choice that black can make. It depends, basically. It's hard to say which locally is the better or strong move for a future fight. So if white does anything in the immediate vicinity, then this move is going to be much better for counterattacking immediately. Whereas with this, you would have to be a bit more careful about how you counterattack. So the point is that black has to play one of these two moves, and they're about equal in value. If we assume this, then it's quite similar to white playing this first, and then playing here. But would black play this move now? Actually, black has a more efficient move to be playing now, which is what he did. This is actually the game sequence.
Okay.
When white plays this in the corner first, black is more efficient. Stretching out a little bit more towards the side, making a larger. Black is beginning to make a territory here, along the side here. And this makes it larger. We can see it's up on the fourth line and on the third line, obviously. So the final move here is more efficient. So the common knowledge is that white, and then force this move first, and then let black make the choice between this one and this one, which is a difficult choice anyway.
Okay.
But that's just the accepted truth. I'm not going to say that it was definitely a mistake.
Okay.
Yeah. And so black takes the territory here.
This also has a really nice relationship to this
Well,
move
yeah.
as well.
It's good that black was not closer because then it would be a smaller territory. He's going to get all the side territory white is going to allow black to get the side territory here. That would be more. And so white's given black a lot of profit here.
That's almost looking like a territory there.
Well, there's some space here. Later in the game, maybe white will be able to jump in here. But for the time being, it's not advisable because this white stone would be surrounded by black stones. This behind it here. So black would be able to make a one-sided attack against white. And it would be an easy fight for black. And white would be very... So white doesn't want to come in here immediately, but maybe choose the weakest black stones on the board. These two black stones, like if they were something like this, they would be forming a fairly strong group and making maybe some territory along the side here. They're a bit too far away. So in Go, you have these pros and cons, give and takes. By playing white to play defensive moves locally, and therefore gain some points here. But after all this has happened, now you can see there's sort of a white wall here. And this black, so it's a trade-off there. It's not as if Lee Sedol didn't know that would happen.
Right.
But it's a trade-off that he made to make some profit here. And he's inviting white to invade here. Both of these black stones are very weak, by the way. Of course, counterattack against this white wall.
So for folks who are just joining us, this is the Google DeepMind Challenge match. It's the big, huge showdown, man versus machine, rights for either the man or the machine.
Yes.
Lee, so let's take just a sec. Lee is one of the very top players in the world. Myself, I've called him the Roger Federer of the Go world. I like that. I don't.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, he for many years, I think the first decade of this century, he was taking most of the top titles, international titles. So he was If you have a list of ranked players, he's usually and at a good time, he might be at the top.
Well, and again, just because tennis is on my mind, I mean, it's a similar thing that's happened in Go as happened in tennis, which is you've got, like 5 players at the top of the Go world that, depending, we were looking last night, and depending on which ranking you look at, they you kind of have
the ranking charts. They are weighted, like depending. Most of them are actually set so that international tournaments are very heavy, so they have a big influence.
And that's
be China, Japan, and Korea.
Okay.
And Chinese Taipei is also very strong now, and so you could call it 4. And those are the leading countries of the world. And the top players of each country will gather together for these international events. And so the wins in these tournaments are naturally considered more important. They're the important wins.
And in fact, Lee, you mentioned this a little while ago, is just coming off one of these international tournaments. Yeah, can you explain that?
I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right, but it's a team tournament in which China, Japan, and Korea send 5 of their top players to play a match in which the one player who wins will continue playing until he loses.
Right.
And so a single player can wipe out the other country's teams. And of course, he doesn't play his own country at any point.
So it's kind of an exciting setup.
Yeah. So actually, the first Japanese games and wiped out a few Korean and Chinese players. At the point that Lee Sedol came into he was the team captain.
He was the captain. Yeah.
By the people who sent him out. He was the team captain, and there were quite a few players left. I think he won 3 straight or something.
He did.
And at that point, he was playing the team captains of China and Japan also.
Right.
So he was playing the toughest opponents in the world, and he had 3 wins. He lost his final game to I can't pronounce the Chinese name. It's
KE from China, yeah.
KE, and his name is JIE, I think.
Right.
And the K is really tricky for me to pronounce because I'm not saying it right. But yeah, he's still in his teens,
yeah.
I think, and he's sort of the nemesis of
8-2 against Lee.
Right, yeah. But I think Lee Sedol would be satisfied, including world champions.
In 3 straight, he actually played 4 straight days, which is to me just phenomenal. Those are all tough games, and he came basically straight from there. Yeah.
And he's looking at the games, though. I was always playing his fighting style anymore.
Right.
He's experimenting a bit with some more Pacific openings also.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be looking to see if he actually does that in this series.
Which Lee shows up today.
Yeah. Well, he's playing a fighting game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good
so
for
we
the
go
crowd.
for
all right,
further.
let's go forward.
Yeah. White capped, and this is what we call a running fight. In Japan, they call it seriai. It's the same meaning, basically. We have a black group here, which is sort of weak. And groups are strong when they can make territory like this, close to the side of the board. Like this black group would be strong. These stones are neat. You can just turn them over.
These are so cool. I've never seen these kinds.
Yeah, with a white stone here, this stone and this stone it's going to be very difficult for black to make a connection here. So these are sort of isolated. These two are a group. These are together, but they're isolated from this stone and these stones. And they're going to be running out towards the center of the board. And so that's why you call it a running fight. They're going to sort of running out into the center. Black will be adding stones to this group, to stone and this group. These are both groups that could potentially be weak. Again, if you compare this white group to, say, this black group, you can see that white does not have anything on the side of the board. White has very little space to make any territory here. So it's sort of eyeless is what we call it, but yeah.
So I think for both amateurs like myself, and certainly for those of you that are just coming to Go for the first time, looking at this, and we've told Tori, there's a whole board, but in a game, so this I guess is looking a bit like you could count
this is going to be black's territory.
That's territory.
Yeah.
But white, as you're saying, white just has this string of stones here.
Right. Yes.
No territory.
There's no territory, which means that it is potentially in danger. When you don't have territory, then there's some danger that this.
Okay.
But it still takes some time for black to make a wall around it, because you can see.
And then part of the thing that happens in a running fight is that white, certainly at this level, is not actually necessarily expecting to kill something, but to make some profit in the course of the attack.
Let's do a diagramming move to stop black from moving straight out towards the center, which would be relatively easy, sort of forcing black to turn around a corner. Now a soft move, or a kind of a safe move for black. This would be a kind of very orthodox, safe-looking shape. The drawback being that's a bit slow, maybe, but black would be sort of maintaining a connection here and moving out into open space in this direction. And then white would follow up with this. We can see black maybe playing another move somewhere here, and white would continue with something like this. Now we can see that white is more or less connected up here. Save this stone. This stone looked weak before.
Oh, if you could put those up here just a sec.
If we put a black stone here, we can see that this white stone is beginning to look a bit lonely. Right? But if white can add moves to it like this, then now we can see that white is more or less reinforced here, and connected up, and the black stone here is looking weak. So there's a reversal there, and a good possibility, especially if white puts one more stone here, this is going to be white territory.
Now we actually have territory.
Yeah. And so there's potential profit there.
So this is an example of using this attack,
using an attack
leaning on here, collecting some territory here, and the attack is actually still going on.
And still going on. And so with this move, this is a more aggressive move. Now these stones are more or less connected up.
And they're out
in the center. Black might be will have trouble passing through this narrow passage here. It has potential to become black territory, yes.
Right.
So that's sort of what the idea that black has with this move. He's playing a contact play with the peep here, which is the beginning of a counterattack.
So a peep, and actually we have some examples. So this is the most easily connected, then you have a 2-point jump here, which is theoretically cuttable, right?
And then the 1-point jump here.
And then 1-point jump.
Generally speaking, well, obviously stones that are right next to each other, like stones, if they're right horizontally next to each other, then they're connected.
And they're
a group. They're together. When you have a space between them, there is the potential that black, it usually doesn't work. And yeah, I could go into that later, but generally speaking, these are connected.
Right.
Again, these stones are also a one-space jump. You can consider them to be connected. But what white was doing with this peep here, we call it a peep because it's sort of looking. And if white can play this move first and then continue here, we can see that this move that white has just played is reinforced by the move. It looks like white's going to be two stones out. A move that is threatening to separate this shape, the one space jump, which is usually considered a connected shape. When there's a white stone here, peeping it, as we say, then black has to be careful not to be cut off. So Sedol chose this move, just connecting. And we can see again, this resembles this shape or this shape. They're all the same shape.
Okay.
It's a connected shape. But we can see that this stone over here is a bit far away, right? So what white continued to do is cut this group in two. So this is an example for those of you who don't really know much about Go of a cutting position, diagonal, because in Go the stones have to be horizontal or vertical next to each other to be connected up.
And when these are cut.
These are actually diagonally cut, and so are the white stones. And so we have a fight. Now the fight is getting really complicated. This is actually the first time I've seen AlphaGo playing a game that has this difficult a fight.
I was thinking that because we went over the 5 games with Fan Hui from October, and I don't know if I want to say peaceful, but they were...
Well, just to give a you say. And he was playing for a peaceful game, and the computer sort of edged him out. Like it was like that didn't work.
Well, and because normally for a professional, and for any of you out there who have ever played either a really strong player or a professional,
that's usually the easy way to
just
win.
Wait till the end and just,
right,
I've seen professionals collect 20 points in endgame without even...
It have started with an overplay on Franhui's part, which made it relatively easy for AlphaGo to be simple. You can play a very aggressive move like Lee Sedol always does. And if it's not a blatant overplay, then it can be very difficult to refute it.
Right.
But if you for it to actually to trick the opponent, it's not going to happen usually.
So this game, and just sort of, get your thoughts on it, but this game has a very different feel from the games that we saw from the fall.
Well, we're already seeing that AlphaGo is sort of attacking here.
Yeah.
And is not afraid of the fight. And so it doesn't feel that it needs to avoid a fight, or maybe it feels that it's necessary to fight with a stronger opponent. Because there is a definite difference in strength between Lee Sedol and a significant difference in strength.
And I think this was one of the things that you were looking for, was whether there was going to be that kind of change.
A change in tactics.
Yeah.
So either it's a fundamental change in style, and AlphaGo is just more oriented to fighting, or maybe it's a change in tactics because the opponent, Sedol, is such a strong player.
I see.
And so we have a very difficult fight here because we have weak stones all over the place. Usually when you're fighting, you have a weak black group and a weak white group, and they're fighting each other. Or maybe
just kind of a fair fight.
Maybe one extra group.
Right.
And then it's usually an unfair fight. But here we have white stones here that are not settled. The black stones here are sort of surrounded, and they're weak. There's white stones on this side. And of course, the two black stones that were cut off here are weak. And all of these groups have a potential to die. And so we'll be seeing that later in the game, and then I can maybe explain how groups can be killed.
But right now, it's enough to say, there's serious fighting going on here. This is fairly complicated reading, yeah?
It's really complicated,
okay.
Yeah. And black pushes through. Oh, this hasn't happened, but it is happening right now.
Whoa. How did you know? Oh, yeah, that's
this
right,
is sort of
you're
automatic,
a top professional.
Right.
Right. Oh, so we should just reintroduce, welcome. We have a room full of folks here at the Four Seas, and we have not one, but two commentary rooms. This is a ballroom at the Four Seasons on the 6th floor, I think?
It's on the sixth floor. Yeah.
The ballroom yesterday was full of journalists for the press conference. It has now been divided. We have half for the English commentary. On the other half side of the wall is the Korean commentary,
yes.
Which we can't hear, so they did something to fix that sound
bleed. They fixed the wall. Yeah,
yes, so
that's good.
Good.
Yes.
Room is packed here. I'm sure the one next door is packed. Lots of press here. So this is the Google DeepMind challenge, man versus machine. The question is, have they finally developed a thinking computer program that can actually play Go at this top level? So needless to say, in both the Go community, and the artificial intelligence community, and the computer community, this is historic, really historic. All kinds of applications that we'll probably get into talking about. But we certainly got a really tough game starting right away.
This is looking like a top professional. It's much more aggressive than it was before.
Okay.
Less orthodox maybe in style, but this fight was really sort of Lee Sedol sort of invited the fight, but AlphaGo did not back away from it, and so this is really interesting seeing it fighting so intensely.
Okay. And just a reminder, this is Michael Redmond, 9-dan professional. Which is Michael is the first and I believe only
I'm the only Westerner for a number of things because
that's right.
Basically, for a period of time, I was just about the only one. So
to have the 9-dan. 9-dan is the highest.
It's the highest rank. There were two Westerners who became professional before me. They were a shodan, and that was a 1-dan or a 2-dan.
So the dan,
after 3-dan, everything I did was new.
so the way it works for folks is that it's 1 through 9 dan. 1 would be the basic professional,
The lowest professional rank.
and then right on up to 9 dan, which is the top
highest
professional
rank,
rank. And you've been living and playing in Japan since I think '77.
That's right.
So long time. You've got, I think you're closing in probably in the next couple of years on 600 tournament wins, which is
Yeah, several years ago I had got to 500, and I think they give you something for that. Yeah. There's about 80 players in Japan who have 500 tournament wins.
so this is a pretty elite group of folks.
Yeah, I think in Korea and China actually they play more games,
Okay.
so the numbers are higher. But in Japan it's something like 80 players, and then it's a much smaller number of players who have 600 wins. I think I'm somewhere around 580 wins so far in the official tournament, so
right.
I'm getting there.
Right. Very impressive. We're in the West extremely proud of Michael and
thank
follow
you.
him carefully. So we're really privileged to have you here. I know that across North America at this moment, people are missing out on their beauty sleep to watch you. So
Okay.
when you play these moves ahead of these guys and then they play them,
Well, that was the obvious move, yeah.
I know everybody
so
out
now
there
it's
plays.
Lee Sedol is thinking.
He's thinking.
I think he has a new haircut, actually.
He does.
Yeah.
Is it, I think it's since they have a barber here in the hotel. I was thinking maybe I need to.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. They have a fancy barber, yeah.
They do, but you have to make an
Yeah.
appointment. You can't just drop in.
Right, yeah.
It's the Four Seasons.
So now Lee Sedol is reading out all sorts of variations. Basically, he is wondering whether he, or oh no, he doesn't want to make a trade. He wants to go for everything.
Wow.
He's adding a stone to those two black stones in the center. These two black stones.
Yeah.
In the center, he's adding a stone to that, which means that he's not going to give them up.
That would be big to give those stones up, right?
Well, can we do a variation? I wonder
Yeah,
if
let's do a
we're on the
variation,
screen.
and I'll check
If
and
black
see.
did something like this,
While you're doing that, I'll check
Yeah.
and see if anybody has a question on
right?
Twitter, which is
All right, yeah. If black did something like this, black would be offering an exchange of these two stones, which have trouble, will not be able to run
exchanging
away,
these.
in exchange for these white stones, which would also have trouble escaping. Black would maybe be giving up some more stones on the side here, but basically would be trying to kill these white stones and giving up anything else. So this would be what black would do if he wanted to make a trade. With this move, black is saving these two stones. He's adding a stone here. And white answers. I don't see anything wrong with the way white's playing so far. And with this one move, black has reinforced these two stones slightly. And now he plays here.
ah. So one of the things I love about with professional games as compared to amateur games is that when I stop to read at that point, it's usually too late.
It's too late, huh?
Like I should have read this out a little bit more beforehand, and then everything's just sort of die horribly.
Yeah.
And I just play another game, right? But often it looks like it's going to collapse into disaster. But
Right.
with the professional level,
Well,
there's exchanges being offered, right? You want
I think a
this.
weaker professional would be really uptight at this point already. Even.
Oh,
but
okay,
I
so it's
think
not just me. Okay,
It's not
all right.
just you.
All right.
I think Lee Sedol has a general idea of what he's trying to do. For one example, white just played here. This is saving these white stones in the center, and there's a bit of a weakness here. So white's sort of offering a trade. Now, if white was greedy and tried to save these three stones, then there would be danger on both sides. Let's just do a bit of a variation here. Black chases these white stones on the upper side. Black is actually aiming to capture these white stones in the center here.
Can do
So
just
we'll do a
the-
geta, which is, in English, I think I like the English word for it better. It's called a net.
A net, yes. This
because-
is really clever, yeah.
Black has just netted these five stones are a group.
So this is a good time to talk about liberties,
Talk about liberties.
right?
when you filled all your opponent's liberties, you can capture stones.
And
So
liberties.
for instance, let's start with this black stone just to make things simpler.
Okay.
This black stone has 2 adjacent points that are still open.
Right. So it
And
doesn't,
then,
it's not this space. It's the actual.
It's the actual adjacent points,
Right.
horizontal and vertical.
Right.
And at this point, it has 4. Adding these stones that were in the actual
Takes
game.
away 2. So
Now there's 2. When white fills all of the adjacent points like this takes a number of moves. It takes at least 4 moves.
it's
Then white
gone.
can capture the stone and it is taken off the board. That's one of the basic rules of Go.
Okay.
So it's a very important rule. Now these white stones, they're all next to each other, so they're one group. They're all connected. And so maybe you can follow me if I say that this,
1,
this, and this,
2,
and this
3.
are the liberties that are
Right.
left for it. It has 3 liberties. And eventually, if black fills all these 3 liberties, this
would be
group is going to be captured and taken off the board, which will be a great damage to
So
white.
sad.
It's going to be very damaging for white to lose this group.
Yeah.
So
So why can't white just run away?
white is like a fish caught in a net, because when white tries to run away, naturally one of the basic rules again of Go is that when you play a move, it's your opponent's turn next. That's very.
hate that.
Amateurs have trouble with that rule sometimes.
I want to play 2 moves.
You want to play 2 moves.
I do.
But once white plays a move, black will answer here.
Okay.
And we can see now one of those liberties is being filled up.
Now only has 2 liberties
White
left.
still wants to try to get out. But as white sort of struggles around, less and less liberties.
But wait a minute.
Yeah.
But white could do something else.
Yeah. You're going to try this one,
I
right?
am gonna try this
yeah,
one.
okay. You're getting fancy, huh?
Yeah, I'm going to try this
You're
one.
going to get fancy.
Yeah.
I was ready for that one, of course. Yeah. And then black. Now this black stone is in danger.
Yeah.
If white plays here, white can capture this black stone.
And then he's out.
Yeah. So black extends.
Right.
Now this black stone is reinforced by this black stone and has extra liberties. And white is still sort of in the net here. White pushes through and
still-
black captures it.
It still only has. And all
And
I
so the whole
succeeded
group
to
does.
do was making my dead group bigger.
Making it bigger, yeah.
That's my specialty.
Yeah, they say fatten the pig and
That's
then eat it.
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Die big.
Yeah. And so that's sort of what Lee Sedol was, he wasn't probably hoping for it, but that was the threat.
Right.
And so he was showing that move, and AlphaGo protected. So it's a very natural sequence here.
So one of the things is that it actually it runs a little faster. Like this is slow and this is slow and this is a little faster running too, right? Not really.
It's hard to answer that
Okay.
from the professional viewpoint.
All right.
Now, if black had played here, then he probably would have been able to kill these 3 stones. But there's a hole here in black's connection. Like these 3 black stones are connected, these 3 black stones are connected, but they're not connected to each other. So if white pushes through here and cuts, white will be able to capture these stones here. Because
I
these
see.
stones
Yes,
are really in a
yes.
pinch. And black has to play something like this. In this sequence, black would be able to capture these 3 stones, but
this is
would
a
lose
big
all of
loss.
this. And then once these stones are dead, these white stones, by capturing these black stones, will end up connected up to these stones. So these stones are sort of useless also. So the whole fight becomes useless for black. So he doesn't want to make that trade.
Okay.
And in many fights in Go, you find a lot of offered trades, which are sometimes accepted and sometimes not.
And so one of the things in Go is that, and certainly for a professional, but even for amateur, is that all of these things, and these are called variations.
Variations, yeah.
And and you can see the players sitting there.
Thinking,
That's what
yeah.
they're thinking.
Well,
they're
working out how it will turn out.
okay.
And what I showed you, for instance, is just one example of many. Already it was tens of variations that I could have shown.
Right.
And if I could have gotten complicated. That was the simple one.
We'll let you get complicated.
And that's the easy part,
All right.
reading out the moves. The difficult part is evaluating what you end up with. So like that final position I showed you, let's do it again, just a few moves. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, regardless of whether this is correct from a professional
Right.
viewpoint, will black be satisfied with something like this? This is a fairly big white territory with black dead stones in it, some black territory here. It's a trade. And so whether or not you like this depends on, it suddenly, we were focusing on this small part of the board.
Right.
Suddenly you have to not only feel good about it locally, you have to integrate it into the whole board position and decide whether you like that board position.
And this is sort of the place where the Go programs and
They used to
are
not
very
be able
weak
to do it, yeah.
because they could actually be fairly good at local fights. I've played computers. In fact, I think in one of my first tournaments back in the mid '80s in New York City, they had a computer program. I wasn't that strong, but I very quickly realized I could just start a fight because it would get confused.
Right. And I think that's one of the biggest developments in AlphaGo because at least looking at the 5 games it played in October, it seems to know what it's doing and that it does have an evaluation of the position and it seems to be fairly good. So Lee Sedol didn't like that. Basically, he didn't like the result of a trade. Oh, sorry. And so he played here. Now, the value of this move is not only is it protecting the cutting point here, why don't I show you how it protects the cutting point. If white pushes through, and this is still diagonal. So basically, if this stone were here, then we would have a completely connected group. With the stone here, it looks a bit loose, but actually when white tries to cut with this move, again, we have to remember it's black's turn next. Black can chase the white stone. Now this white stone is in danger of being surrounded like this and taken off the board. So white tries to escape, and black can chase it to the edge of the board. And you can see at the edge of the board, naturally the board comes to an end, and there's nowhere to escape. Like white can go this far, but after that, white's running out of places to escape to.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, this is what you might call, people often call this a knight's move because it's a knight's shape, just like in chess.
From chess, yes.
It's also, more generally, it's called a loose connection because something like this would be a solid connection. Anyone looking at that will know it's connected. This looks a bit looser, but it's actually connected also, so it's called a loose connection sometimes. And so naturally, AlphaGo will not try something stupid like that. AlphaGo moved out. Let's see.
And just a quick question about the pace of play here. We had talked about this. The time limits are 2 hours per player, which is actually relatively short. I mean, a regular major tournament would be how many hours?
It differs in countries. Actually, in modern Go, 2 hours is pretty normal, I think.
Okay.
Players used to have something more like 5-6 hours at least. And then in some of the Japanese tournaments, they would play championship matches for 2 days because Japan has a very long tradition of professional games. And so for hundreds of years, they've had games extending over many days. And so they have these two game matches, which had about 9 or 10 hours each for players. But that's sort of gone out of fashion, and the younger players, for many years, the international tournaments were played 3 hours apiece. And the more modern tournaments in recent years have been less than that. So 2 hours apiece is pretty normal, I think, now.
Okay.
Some tournaments are even 1 hour apiece.
And it just gives us a chance to talk very quickly. Go invented in China some 4,000 years ago, roughly. Played basically still the same. The rules have not really changed.
Yeah, well, professionally speaking, there were some rule changes, but they were relatively minor.
Okay.
The way the game is being played has not changed all that much.
Okay.
The way they calculate the score, of course, is slightly different even now.
Different rule sets for different places.
There's a Japanese rule set, Korean rule set, which are about the same. And then there's the Chinese rule set, which is slightly different. And for an amateur especially, it's sometimes difficult to comprehend.
Right. Invented in China, went to Japan, where it was sort of...
Well, I think it went to Japan through Korea.
Through Korea.
It came with a lot of the Chinese culture. And you were saying 4,000 years. That's the legend, about 4,500 years maybe.
Okay.
It was one of the legendary Chinese emperors who invented it. Actually, his minister, but that guy was an emperor too later on.
Okay.
But I think the historians sort of differ as to what those emperors actually were, because they might have been chieftains or something.
And there's different theories about why it was invented.
Well, it's so far, and it was invented for the emperor's son, who was
I love this one.
who needed to settle down a little bit, and so
And so Go was the answer.
So Go was the answer. So it was invented to educate the emperor's son.
Did they say whether it worked?
Well, his son didn't succeed him to the throne, so maybe it didn't. But there's more Go. It's pretty concrete up to about 2,500 years, 2,500.
Okay.
That's something that I think you will find most historians of Go would agree to, at least 2,500 years. And then before that, they don't have any proof.
Gotcha. All right, there's your quick your Go history lesson. Lots of stuff on the web.
Yeah. Now we have that black group there. Looks like it might be in danger, but actually it's probably.
Do we want to sort of take us? You know what? This is a good chance to take a second to explain how to live, because for a lot of folks, I think even maybe Q level Go players, and I'm
would be worried maybe.
Well, I'm 3-dan and I'm worried. So
let's see. How will white try to kill this black group? Let's say white plays here.
Okay.
To me, like black might be able to make an eye there. You
need 2 eyes for the group to live.
Yeah. One way to live is to connect up to a different group.
Okay.
Okay. So this is what I'm going to do now. Black's going to play here and play here.
Oh, that's nice.
Now these are all diagonal, but you can see that if white jumps in here, black will just capture.
Because he only has the one.
On the edge of the board, you don't have the liberty here, right?
Gotcha.
Because that's off the board.
The O doesn't help. I guess
it doesn't help.
The letters
no.
don't help. Okay, too bad.
You wish. Yeah. I would just write another line on the board, but they don't let me do that.
We're going to talk about this.
Yeah.
Michael wants a bigger board, so
Yeah.
hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about this.
And
so that's not working
now
either.
this is diagonal here, so cannot really prevent black from eventually doing something like this to capture.
So that's not working.
So it's not going to work. So you see, now we're going to try again. I'm going back to the original position. So white's going to get smarter and try to cut black off here, right?
No connect.
Now there's no way that black can connect this group up.
So now it really is surrounded.
Now we come up to the idea of 2 eyes.
Ooh, and we have a word to tell people. This becomes a what? Sumigo.
It's a smiggle, yeah.
Yeah, which Michael makes up great. Just forget life and death problems.
Maniac life and problems.
Yeah.
They're probably too difficult for most people.
Okay.
Now, black has 2 areas that look sort of like black could make an eye. There's one up here.
Okay.
Looks like black has some space here. And there's some space here.
Okay.
And I'll show you how one way it can be used is to play here. Now, this is a forcing move. Black can next cut here.
Right. Yes,
These
capture
2
those
stones would be netted. It's another kind of almost like a net. If white tries to escape, these 3 white stones have only 1 liberty, so black captures. So this is white has to do something to reinforce these 2 stones. The natural move would be to connect up here. Now black can play here. Now this is another forcing move here.
I see.
This threatens to cut this white stone off. You can see it's diagonal. White plays here. Now white has a solid connection here. These stones are all connected up. They're pretty big. To be honest, they're not completely alive yet. So that's something that AlphaGo has to worry about in this game. We have something that's beginning to look like what I call an eye. Black's going to push through here.
It's a second eye, though.
And I'll show you why we need 2 eyes. Yeah. Okay. Let's be fancy and play here. Black's threatening to cut this stone off.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Now, at this point, any Go player will see that black has 2 eyes, even a Q player maybe. But let's just go down to the bitter end. Let's say white plays here to try to invade here.
Yep.
Black will block that. And we can see that black has what looks like 1 point of territory here.
And that's
yeah. Let's play here. This is an Atari. That's what you say when your opponent's stone, well, you don't actually have to say it, but it's what some people say when their opponent's stone is about to be captured. black is threatening to capture this one white stone because black does have two adjacent points, and white's connection is not valid, it's diagonal. So white backs up. Now this group is alive as it is. We'll just fill from the outside and show what I mean. Because let's just have black playing elsewhere. White plays a lot of moves. In order to capture this black group, white wants to fill everything adjacent to it. White would want to play here and both here. But again, there's the rule that you can't play two moves at once. So you only put one stone down. The moment white plays this stone, it's dead. This is a suicide move.
It has no
liberties. It's
Right.
captured already. If you put a stone down like that and it's captured already, it's called a suicide move.
Which is illegal.
It's illegal in Chinese rules and Japanese rules.
And just wrong too, right?
There are some rule sets that allow it, but it's not a good move anyway. It's just a wasted move.
Right.
And the same goes for here, where there are 4 black stones protecting this point here. If white jumps in here, it's already captured. And so there's 2 points that white cannot play, and so there's no way that white can fill all of black's liberties. So let's go back to the game position. Yeah. You know, these players, both of them are playing fairly quickly.
That's what I wanted to ask you.
I was going to digress a bit more, but I'm sweating here just trying to keep up with them. Yeah.
Okay.
And dropping stones. Okay, here's the original position. Actually, there was another way for black to live, which in some cases would be good, in some cases not so good. After white plays here, black has a double threat. Well, after playing this exchange, black also has the double threat of pushing through from this side. And you can see that black stones are all connected up here, so this one is okay. He's threatening to cut these 3 stones off this way. And this one stone, well, white will save the 3 stones.
Of course.
And this stone. This makes a big territory shape which can eventually be divided into 2 eyes with a move like, for instance, like this, capturing the one side.
Right.
We can see that it's divided into 2 spaces. So it's going to be easy for black to... The drawback is that there seems to be a bit of a weakness here. So black might do it the way I showed before, by this way, making an eye here and an eye here.
Because it doesn't want to.
There could be in jeopardy. So yeah, just for beginners,
Okay.
just to show how it can get a bit complicated. But that group is alive. And
right.
so because this black group is alive, we can see that black is sort of launching an attack against this large white group, which doesn't really, white doesn't have any eye shape to compare to what I just showed black has. White doesn't have the eye shape yet. White has some space here that looks like it could be an eye if white works at it. Mm-hmm. White has some space here to work with, but it's a bit, there's some black stones scattered in the way, sort of blocking white from making any great progress there. So Sedol is trying to attack this white group. And we have some black stones that are sort of forgotten here. These black stones, Sedol wants to do something with them at some point. So he's trying to attack the white group first, and then maybe move out with these 2 black stones at some later point. Because you can see that these black stones, they're diagonal here, so they're cut off. So are the white stones. So if black eventually moves out with these black stones with something like that,
Double attack.
it's attacking these stones. Also, the situation here is not completely settled, because if black can push out here, there's going to be trouble for white also. And so there's still a lot of potential trouble. There's this group is more or less, it's just barely alive. The white group is not completely alive here. This white group, if black moves out. On the other hand, if white plays a move here, we can be pretty sure that these 2 black stones will be captured in a kind of a loose net. This black stone here is weak. For the time being, Sedol is sort of planning to sacrifice maybe this stone, just give it up. But if it eventually does start moving out, then this white group will be weak. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 potentially weak groups, and I haven't even counted this black group, which is attacking at this point, but could potentially be weak.
So what you just did, that evaluation, that's been the thing, and we had a discussion last night at dinner with some of the DeepMind team talking about this question of intuition and evaluation. Traditionally, this has been the weakness of the computer programs.
One of the weaknesses.
One of the weaknesses.
Even the Monte Carlo programs, they weren't so good at solving. There were programs, actually, there were algorithms that could solve local problems like this, typical problems. Actually, I think PandaNet has an algorithm online.
When it's
that will
a
do that.
very specific
like
local-
you have your PandaNet badge right there.
I do,
No,
that's
I'm
right.
sorry, that's Perigo.
This is Perigo, which is a whole
Yeah.
other thing.
It's a whole other thing, yeah.
But so yeah, so you're talking about the thing that we just went through. With
There
this,
is a server
where it's
that
localized.
has, yeah, they have a algorithm that's sort of online that you can get when you're a member of there, and it can solve it. You would have to close it in completely, so you'd have to do some work with this to make it actually work.
But the
it's a
overall
really- yeah.
evaluation that you were just looking at, strong, weak, and
Right.
not only
And of course, that program is not made to play Go.
Right.
It just evaluates the symbol. So there was never a program that actually integrates that which people have done with computers, but never had a play well on the entire board. So that's a big leap forward that AlphaGo did, because it was already reading local positions fairly correctly, especially when Fanghui was making an overplay in the previous October.
Okay.
It had the right answer, and it fitted it well into the overall position, which is something that only humans can do before.
Yeah, white's just moved out there.
Well, at this point, white had to do something for these stones. Let's see how black might be able to capture these stones. For instance, black could play here to threaten the white stones. It's white's move at this point. Black has just played here, so it's white's move. But if white plays elsewhere, for instance, black can play here,
Threatening a cut.
threatening a cut,
Oh, that's nice.
and then cover here.
That's very nice.
White's already sort of running out of moves. White might try to move out. Black probably has multiple choices, multiple valid moves at this point, but
Yeah.
even just going like this, we can see that white is trapped. And black does have this weakness here, but he can just answer that. And black has this sort of group, if black has three liberties. This one only has 2, but it can escape eventually and extend its liberties. You can see when black adds a stone here, this now has 1, 2, 3 liberties. White only
This
has
has
2
two
liberties. It
liberties,
means that it only takes black 2 moves to take those white stones off of the board, whereas it will take white at least 3 moves to take any of these black groups off the board.
And that's almost resignable if that happened. I mean, that's just.
If this
that's-
happened,
that's-
AlphaGo would probably. I think
just it.
AlphaGo would. I've never seen it resign yet, so I don't know. But
He doesn't even want to go there. but in a yeah, if you were playing.
if I were
this-
playing, yeah. Well, this would be a really simple mistake, so I wouldn't make that mistake.
No, of course not.
If I did, I would probably, commit some ritual suicide or something. Okay, black extended. Now there is a threat that white sort of made and black sort of called its bluff, because by playing this move, white has left the option of playing on Atari here later in the game. And white does have that option. If black connects, this will be bad for black.
Oh, yes.
And now we can see the black groups. The black group here is cut off. It's diagonal with all its friendly stones. It's cut off here, so the black group dies. What black will do is black will give up this one stone
Right.
and play here
Right.
to reinforce this. This is called the tiger's mouth nowadays. It used to be kaketsugi in Japanese.
Kaketsugi.
Kaketsugi.
Okay.
But the tiger's mouth, which originates from, I think, a Chinese word, is much more interesting way to call it, because this shape is sort of waiting for white to try to cut black by playing here, but that's sticking your head in the tiger's mouth because black's going to capture it immediately. So it's very,
Evocative.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. You don't want to sit.
Go is full
yeah.
of these.
Yeah, well, yes. It's been around for so many thousands of years.
But these sort of
Yeah.
poetic.
And white doesn't really have time to go after this one stone because these stones would die.
Just here.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one way. This is another way it could be done.
This simply a straight. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not. This is better.
Oh, right,
You did
right.
better than me in this case. Yeah. Wow.
I just because I was on this side of the board.
Yeah.
It's closer.
So white's not going to go after that one black stone quite yet, but it's something white might be doing later. White played here. This actually captures those 2 black stones. Why does it? If black plays here, white can play here. You can see black's diagonal and cut off.
Right.
If black plays here, it's a bit more complicated. White will probably push here. Let's see if I can get this right. By trying to escape, black is actually damaging his outside group. But we have a very interesting, it might be a bit complicated for weaker players. It's called a snapback.
Ah, yes, we can show that.
Black plays here. We can see that this white stone is in danger. It's an Atari. These 3 black stones are threatening to capture this white stone. So if you connect here, though, all of these white stones are dead because black captures here. We can see that black still has the 1 liberty here, so black's not dead yet.
Right.
So black wins this one.
But
White can play from the outside. Now we can, just looking at these 4 stones, we see that these 4 stones have an extra liberty here and an open space here. So these are okay for the time being. If black does play here to capture the 1 stone.
how many liberties?
We look at the black stones here. There's only 1 liberty. White can play in here
Just
to
take them
capture
off.
these. That would be a
That's
dead
cool.
state. And there's other ways that white could get an advantage out of this fight, but it's more fun to do it this way. Yeah. So black does not try to save the 2 stones. So this is the game position again. Instead of trying to save the 2 stones, which would be a disaster, black plays here. This
To fix his shape.
reinforces his shape here, again the tiger's mouth, and threatens to do something there next. White played here. This reinforces white's connection here and threatens to push here. Now we have another snapback. That's good.
This
Let's
is
do
the
it
game of
again.
snapbacks.
If white plays an Atari here, we can see that the black stone here is in danger. Again, I'm playing a second move for white just to demonstrate this. White can throw in here. These black 4 stones are in danger. Black captures, but white can immediately capture black
Because he only has 1 liberty.
because it only has the 1 liberty
Right.
captured. So this is another throw-in move that is called a snapback. So black protected here. And this is really a fast-moving game.
It's amazing. I really did not expect them to play. Let me just reintroduce. You are watching the Google DeepMind Challenge Match Game 1. It's going to be a 5-game match. And yes, let's sit down. Give our legs a rest here. I'm Chris Garlock. I'm the managing editor of the American Go e-journal. With me doing most of the, all of the heavy lifting is Michael Redmond, 9-dan professional. North American-born Go player to reach the top level, real living Go master here with us. So we
Whatever you say.
appreciate you. Appreciate you bringing your
my
wisdom
pleasure.
here. Big shout out to all of you. I'm getting some tweets here who are up late. Phil says he is losing his beauty sleep. I know. Actually, I've got some Empty Sky folks. That's my old club in Rochester, New York. There's a bunch of watch parties all across the country in the U.S. of people. Some are in people's houses. There are some in a bar, which would have been my choice. So y'all drink a beer or a glass of wine for me, because we'll be here for the duration. I always think when I see these kinds of game, Michael, that somebody's going to collapse because that's what happens in amateur games. But so often in pro games, somehow there's you sort of walking along the edge of disaster here, and then a little this, a little that, and then we go on. Could you sort of give
Part
me
of it is that the top players, like Sedol, have pretty astounding reading capacity, so they can read out the variations and choose the correct moves and make their dangerous fighting tactics actually work. There's also the fact that strong players stay in groups and are willing to sacrifice areas in which they can't really fight successfully. Like if we just look at the board here, we can see that black has sort of abandoned some stones in the upper left part of the board. And that's because one of the reasons is that trying to save them just wouldn't work. But it doesn't mean that it's bad for black, because black is getting an advantage in the right side of the board here. And attacking this large white group, which is still, I'm not expecting it to die, but it still needs some extra moves added to it to be completely safe.
We have a question. I just Meat Ballian
Okay.
wants to know a rough point estimate now. Which thank you, because I was going to ask the same question. I mean, we're kind of into a sort of a reasonable point of the game. I mean, to take a
In
look.
this game, it's very difficult to calculate
Right.
because none of the territories are territories. But actually, black does have something in the vicinity of 20 points here.
That's just territory, right? I mean,
It's territory. Depending on how white, in the end, forces black to live on the upper side, it could be decreased a little bit. So
Okay.
it's not a solid 20 points. It's somewhere 15 to 20. Puts another stone in it, will be more than 30 points.
But this is not territory in the same way that is. I mean, you're not sure if it's 15 or 20 points, but you know it's at least 15.
It's going to be a black territory. Still, even this kind of territory is fluid because if you get a lot of white stones, let's just do this sitting down. If you get a white stone in the
This is why
area,
he's a pro, folks.
then if white stones come close to this area, then moves sort of come up and it can be taken away. Some of it can be taken away. If black is playing really defensively, then he can still keep most of it. But most of the time, players don't do that. And then they make this big trade where some other part of the board becomes black territory, and this area all disappears, or in drastic cases, you see the black group with all this territory ends up dead or something. And something
But black
similar
will take
happens for
something
black on the other
else.
side.
Right.
So you don't really know what's going to happen. But for the time being, I'm willing to say it's 15 to 20 points.
Okay. So
Now in the
that's-
upper left there, if black plays a move, it's going to be black's going to have some territory too. Like it's definitely, black already has the potential to make a living shape in there.
would it be the
At that
3
point,
free?
right? Yeah, just play it.
We may
you
look
go
at
out,
that.
You can put stones down.
Oh,
too.
can I?
I give you
Oh,
permission.
phew, okay. I want to play with
You can put one stone down right
Okay,
now.
all right.
Yeah. Very good. You
This
have
is all called the Sansan, yeah?
That's the 3-3 point.
Yeah.
Sansan is Japanese for 3-3.
Okay.
And since Japan was the country that spread Go throughout the world originally in the 20th century, Japan did the most work there. A lot of Go terms are still in Japanese. In more recent years, Korea and China have been doing a lot of promoting Go overseas.
Yep.
And so we're getting, like I was doing the tiger's mouth term. I think that comes from Chinese. So we're getting a lot of words that originated from Korean and Chinese language now. But originally, a lot of it was Japanese. So that the Sansan you came up with just there is 3-3 point in Japanese. Yeah.
And
San
so-
is the number 3.
And so one of the cool things about this, and like, you've traveled all over the world, I've traveled all over the world, you can sit down and play a game of Go, but we know the rules, and so you can just play the game. It's really, I mean, and I
Yes.
think where is it called Hand Talk. Wichi, is that?
Hand Talk is the name of one of the programs, right?
Yes.
It's
That's
the name
right,
of
that's
one
right.
of the Go playing programs.
I forgot.
And it's also one of the names, if you say it in Japanese, it's one of the alternative names for the game, actually. And that's why the programmer chose that name for his program, actually.
Okay. Cool.
I'm not sure what nationality the programmer, maybe it was Chinese, I'm not sure.
I would guess, but I actually don't know.
Just to give you an idea of what's actually happening in the game, AlphaGo is adding a lot of stones to its weakest group. So this white group here, with all these added stones, is getting more space to make a life in, and at the same time is reducing black's potential on the right side of the board.
Yes.
Black has just played here. This is another kind of, it's also a net. These white stones are sort of surrounded loosely, and there's no way that they're going to be escaping.
Loose net.
It's a loose net, and AlphaGo will not try to escape
Right.
yet, at least. So that connects the two weak, these are two weak black groups that have more or less connected with this move. So it's a very effective move. At this point, I think AlphaGo should be thinking of whether it wants to play any more moves in the lower right to sort of really devastate black's territory in this area, or does it want to move to the upper left?
So one of the things that we had talked about in preparation was that your feeling from reviewing the five game match against Fan Hui, the European champion, who's here, by the way.
He's the referee, isn't he?
He's the referee.
Yeah.
That's right. In fact, you may Ooh, looks like Lee is taking a little bit of a break.
Okay, yeah.
So I think we may see Fan Hui there. But that your feeling was that as the game went along, that the AlphaGos sort of got stronger.
Well, it could be that Fan Hui was getting weaker as the game went on, but the computer was playing very conservatively in the beginning. I think that I don't know how much of this was kind of a conscious decision, whether it was just something that was naturally happening because of the values that the database gave the program.
Okay.
But it really worked very well because the program was gradually getting, I think that it was just calculating more and more accurately as the game progressed, and it was looking stronger and stronger to me towards the end of the game.
And I was thinking that kind of makes sense because I was talking to some of the folks here and explaining how the game is played is that in Go you start out with an empty board and the board fills up. The options of places to play become fewer, and so that it would make sense that the computer
will have less variations to read. And the brute force part of it's, yeah.
We're hoping to actually get some of, and I'll take a look out here, but we're hoping to get some of the DeepMind folks
to come over and talk to us.
and talk to us about that. So,
well, just a note about this move.
Is this?
This is sort of consistent with its, even looking at the relatively peaceful games against Fan Hui, AlphaGo tended to, in the middle game or the end game, it would still play moves close to groups that were not completely safe, meaning that from White's viewpoint, this White group is not 100% alive. I don't see any spaces that are White territory yet. So adding stones to this group, because definitely White does not want to die. That would be out of the question.
Right.
So White adds stones to this group. It looks far away, but with all these White stones lined up here, it's good enough as a connection.
Well, generally speaking, the bigger your wall is, the
farther away you can jump. Yeah.
Right.
So this is far away from the wall, but in this case, it's good enough to make a connection with White.
Does this mean that this is now?
Now this is sort of isolated. So you can see that AlphaGo is playing in an area where there's potential fighting, and it's just like professionals, just like humans, that it's attaching a larger value to an area like that, which is volatile, compared to an area like the upper left, which is really big in territory. But maybe not so important as far as living or dying with these groups, or just being attacked and being forced to scramble to make a living shape.
Well, and this brings us to one of the fascinating things about the game of Go. We often, when we're sort of talking, because a lot of people know chess, and so we'll talk. Chess is sort of a useful comparison point. Chess, you've got two armies are battling each other. The object is to kill the king. The king.
Yeah.
So it's a winner-take-all kind of a game, and it's basically the entire game of chess is a battle, literally, right? Whereas in Go, the object as a territorial game, you just want to win half a
point is what they say, but basically. Where do you want to make your territory? It can be any part of the board. Like at this point, I already here.
Right.
By capturing these two White stones, now we've made some territory here. It doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter where you make your territory, but there have to be reasons for it to matter apart from the territory itself.
Okay.
And in this case, White's playing a move here. Not only is it big compared to a black move, something like this, which would start making some black territory here.
And continue the attack.
The attack part is more important because since these stones, the white stones and black stones, are the same, there's no pieces that are more valuable than other pieces. It's actually the positioning of those pieces and their efficiency in making territory, which is important. And so this would be a very efficient move in that it's making a lot of black territory with only one move, whereas any moves that White might be forced to play, say to make an territory to make I shape, would be influencing a much smaller part of the board, and they would be inefficient.
And
so
for a pro, that's just incredibly painful to have to pay.
That's just as painful as being killed sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and a pro would almost rather just die. I mean,
Well, people say that. I don't really believe it myself.
even living ugly is better than dying.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But it's very, but it has no effect on anything else. Has no effect on
So
this
it's,
group.
it's
has
a
no effect
very,
on that
yeah,
group.
a
It's
move
just-
like this in a it's more or less filled up part of the board is usually very, very inefficient.
Right.
So it's something White wants to avoid, and that's why, that's a good reason that this is a good move that AlphaGo played, to move into the right side, reducing Black's territory by a great deal, also reinforcing the weakest group. So that's a pattern that it always had, which is the same as a strong Go player, in that it always plays moves to reinforce weak groups, and it's actually creating a potentially weak Black group.
Well, and because I was looking around and trying to figure out, Black has got some. We haven't done a whole board, count yet, but. Black has certainly got some combinable territory. We already agreed that this is not yet territory,
It's not
so
yet
you can't
territory.
really quite count that.
Just put a white stone on the D3 point there. Just to show.
So you're used to
D3.
having to pick the right
D3, yeah, that one.
Right.
If White plays a stone somewhere around there, then that's going to be White territory. It's
like
going to be a big White, no,
20,
it's more than 30.
30 points, 30 points.
It's, depending on what happens on about the 7th line here.
Oh, right.
It
here.
could,
That's
it
right.
could
That's right.
expand, and these stones are probably not going to be escaping in the near future. So it's 35 to, if White adds a stone somewhere around there, it'll be 40 points. So it's well more than 30 points. So it's a big
one
territory.
move.
With that one move, White can more or less catch up in territory. But it doesn't really influence the fighting that could happen in other parts of the board. So that's why this move is probably a better move.
More active. This is simply territory.
Yeah. And if Black had answered this move with something like this, this would be a more conservative move. If Black plays something like this, Black will be able to make a life in the corner.
Okay.
So that's a really big territorial move. Instead, Sedol wants to play here. He played here. This is influencing a fairly wide area here. If we imagine Black stones lining up to make a wall on the left here,
Here.
we already see it's 5 wide, 5
Right.
lines wide, and it's almost 10 lines up. So it's about 40 points of territory that Black can make relatively easy because he already has this wall. And when Black does that, moves like this can potentially be a kind of a double threat towards the corner and the side. So I'm thinking that in some cases, maybe Sedol will be thinking of allowing White to kill this stone and taking a big territory here in return.
And this is another sort of hallmark of the game of Go in that, so this one starts out pretty much right away with this pretty intense
It was an intense fight, yeah.
And then you come to a period now where we go back to a little bit of the ballet, right? I mean, White plays here, Black plays over here.
Yeah.
They're sort of getting ready for the next.
Well, this is a point of the game where even some pros would be immediately playing here,
Just right away.
just to save these. You don't want to die.
So let me just ask you, and again, I'm just sort of constantly, flashing on, that the computer program is doing this sort of evaluative, and this is what's taken this program, to places that no Go program has gone
Yes.
before. The kind of evaluation that you would just do
Well, yeah.
instinctively.
Like just counting the territories and judging the overall position. I sort of shade it slightly different from the way AlphaGo is playing stones close to its weak groups. Kind of a positional judgment and then an overall game judgment. I think AlphaGo has both of those. But I see it when it's in a kind of an ambiguous position. It tends to play a move close to a group that might be in danger. And I think that is, it resembles professionals, human professionals.
Okay. Let me remind folks, you are watching the Google DeepMind Challenge match, man versus machine. This is the classic, thousands of years old game. Up until now, computers played this at a very, very low amateur level. And the folks at Google DeepMind have come up with a really impressive program. And this is the 5-game match with a prize of $1 million. But really, they're playing for bragging rights on both sides. So I'm Chris
sorry.
Garlock, managing editor of the American Go e-journal. Our pro is Michael Red.
Yeah, I'm a bit too excited to let you finish. Yes.
Things are happening.
Yeah,
Michael
yeah,
Redmond,
yeah.
Nine down, and he's up. He's off the chair. What do we got going here?
Well,
What's
I
happening?
don't like the move that AlphaGo just played.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know.
What's go ahead and
It's a bit of a slow move. White played here. Now, for the time being, White didn't really. It's a thick move. You could call it a thick move too. But for the time being, White didn't really have to worry about that, I don't think.
So we can introduce a new word here.
Thick
No,
or slow.
Tenuki, I was thinking.
Tenuki, okay, there's that one too. Tenuki is when you play elsewhere.
I mean, so you were looking for a response locally, right?
Normally, I think White should answer this black move.
That's what you want to
because the double attack here, which
is what
Sedol
happens.
immediately did, is putting a lot of pressure on this corner. And White's going to be playing a lot of stones to make a relatively small corner territory,
Right.
probably. And in the process, Black is going to be consolidating his territory in this area. If White had played here, maybe, this would be the most orthodox move. Now, there is the question of what can Black do with these two
That's
stones?
what I'm wondering about. What is AlphaGo saying?
Well, any
that-
diagonal move, which would be quick, fast-moving, is just too dangerous because White will cut here, and the two stones cannot escape. They're diagonal, they're cut off.
Right.
So Black has to come straight. Now, this is the move that White is worried about.
Oh, yes, that's right. And this is interesting because this is a classic bad shape.
Yeah,
It's
well,
called an empty-
when you're fighting this close,
it's called
it
an
doesn't really
empty-
matter.
Right.
But for various reasons, this looks a bit dangerous for Black. Let's just have White connect here. Black pushes through. And Black's going to escape from the net temporarily. Some fight like this. But this looks like it's a dangerous fight for Black. I would be happy to play this fight with White. I think it's a bit of an overplay for Black because you can see that White is coming out on the left side, getting some influence here. As the White stones come in this direction later in the fight, then these two stones will be coming back to life maybe. So there's a lot of dangerous,
yeah.
and if Black tries to immediately surround those White and the hole here. So
You're not really seeing a problem.
there's a lot of bad ology. Black would probably try to make this work later by starting something in the upper,
To get
upper
right.
left corner.
Right.
And then making it a possible move next.
So two things. One is you just use the term aji, which is one of my favorite Japanese
yes.
terms. But you
It's
need
the
to,
word for taste. And it means that basically it's potential. Because when you have a position like this where you would like to escape like this, but it doesn't work immediately, then you call that aji because it's a problem that White will have to address eventually.
It's possible.
And Black has to make use of that potential, the possibility of moving out like that.
Right.
By making some troubles elsewhere, like for instance with something like this in the upper left corner. With some added Black stones here, this could become more effective.
And so this is the second thing is that oftentimes doing something, and so when you have the aji, which is the taste or the possibility of something happening, you don't generally want to just sort of do it crudely directly unless you know for sure it works.
You have to read
right?
it out. It didn't look like it worked, so then Black would
Do
try
something else to kind of
less direct.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what AlphaGo is worried about.
But this is just very slow, right?
The problem is that even after adding that move, Black still has this invasion here, which will, just to show you a sequence, just like this, it's relatively easy for Black to make a living shape. This is another of those joseki. It's a sequence of moves that is considered to be normal. But in this case, you can see that White's territory is much smaller than it was. And that corner is going to be Black's territory.
It could just live, it can live
It's alive.
unconditionally.
Yeah. Any strong Go player recognizes that that's alive. And
Even a weak-
it's
even a weak
pretty,
one like
even
me.
though, you call yourself weak. Huh? Okay. So I thought it was a bit maybe badly timed. Maybe it should, I would want to play a move like that after Black sort of made some preparation moves here, then I would be playing here that would be sort of ideal for white.
Gotcha.
So that's the sequence that my instinct tells me that I would like to do. But maybe AlphaGo saw something that worried it. So it played the conservative move here. After this, the natural double Kakari, white played one attachment. And then AlphaGo is getting fancy. It's playing here. And this is a sequence that actually has been played in professional Go. So locally, this could be in the database. And mixing these two attachment plays is usually done when you have a group that is in a disadvantaged position, like white is sort of surrounded by all these black stones. So again, it's using this tactical maneuver in a position that actually suits it, because and then white cuts. Now, white is sort of starting a fight here, but white's object actually is to settle these stones. White's object is to final cutting move. Actually, we don't really know if AlphaGo is going to try to save this stone or not. It could be kind of a gambit, as you say in chess. You have a gambit in chess.
Oh, yeah. Right. But it's also often used to sort of, like you're saying, to settle it, so it's not necessarily...
Yeah. Like, for instance, one possibility is that black plays something like this.
Okay.
If white tries to save this stone and this stone and tries to save everything, then it could be a bit tricky for white. But if white maybe just gives black this one stone, let's for instance have something like this, and white plays here, we can see that white is managing to protect the corner in the process of losing this one stone. With something like this, white is protecting the corner. So this is a general idea of what white is trying to head towards. So there's potential that this is going to be a sacrifice play. So naturally, black is now, he's thinking a bit.
Yes.
And he's trying to find a way to make force white into a larger sacrifice. Not the variation I just showed is white was just throwing away one stone.
Right.
Black would like to make white pay a bit more.
Maybe.
Yeah, for whatever advantage he wants. I'm just hoping we have enough ghost stones to finish this game.
I got a lot over on my side, and I'm not using them, so.
Okay, yeah, I'm still worried.
So this is a kind of a critical point. And I'm wondering, from your experience as a top professional playing in tournament games, I think both mental and physical. We've talked about this over the years about the importance. And by the way, so you're looking fitter than ever.
Well, thank you.
But we've talked a lot about this, that it's mental stamina.
It's very important.
And physical
the brain
as well.
is part of your body, so you have to have, you have to be healthy, I think, to be able to think clearly. And even though these games are shorter than they used to be, playing, it's very energetic for a person to be concentrating for such a long period of time. I think actually top players have to concentrate for a bit and then they have to take a break. We did see Lee Sedol taking a break earlier. Yeah, and it's really very tough to concentrate straight for so many hours. And it takes a lot of physical strength too. So people work out. I think a lot of the Chinese Korean players are pretty good at sports. They're athletic. Or you can go to the gym to work out.
The days of the guys who just smoked and drank and is not so.
I don't see young players like that anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that was sort of a classic thing with certainly with the old school Go players. Would go out and play and then go out drinking and smoking until all hours. And I just don't really.
I don't see
that
people
happening.
like that anymore. No. Well, AlphaGo has just played a really good-looking move. It's a move that looks it looks like a pro. And it does that quite often. I saw that in the October games too. It plays some really nice moves sometimes. And again, I think that this is It's maybe an advantage for AlphaGo that this is sort of an enclosed area. So it's maybe just thinking in a limited. I don't really know enough about the program to say, but it seems that when there's less room for the variations maybe. So it might be
more focused.
improving it. Yeah.
Huh. And for Lee, and he talked a little bit about this. I think they both people talked about this yesterday. That I think we have a story in the e-journal at usgo.org about that the computer is not going to get tired. You know?
Definitely not. Yes.
You know, and so that's. I don't want to overemphasize that because, in a certain extent, I suspect that Lee, it doesn't really matter to him, right? I mean, he's really playing the board, I would think, right?
Yeah.
But you know, I've been at enough, you know, top boards and amateur tournaments that I know that people are paying attention. You know, and some players are very sort of emotional. You can sort of see how they're feeling. Although sometimes I'm not sure. Maybe they're you know, putting out different vibes, but that is an aspect to it, and I'm always wondering, you know, how much of a factor that might be. That's I was thinking this, but this is just too.
That's a bit bad look. It looks vulgar.
Yeah, it does look.
But I made a variation like this and like this. Actually, I was sort of making it easy for white, so I'm not expecting him to play that variation to the end.
Right.
Although I got the first move right. That's the normal move. Actually, it's the normal shape.
Okay. Oh, and he's trying to keep it because it also keeps this open, right?
Well, yes. This move, the extension towards the end of the board is called a sarari, or extension down. And it's sort of a very simple shape. It gives white less forcing moves than another potential shape would be this one. It's a diagonal move. That's also a kind of a connection here, but it gives white a lot of options to play an Atari from either side. So it gives white more potential to get a squeeze, a kind of a squeeze to give white's stone. Basically, white's object in this fight is to make these stones into a better shape, because they're sort of loose still at this point. So white wants to sort of fix up the shape here, and probably sacrifice this one stone.
Right, but it's sacrificed as small as possible.
As small as possible.
Right.
So it would be ideal if white could force with this stone and then force again from the corner, but probably Lee Sedol is not going to allow AlphaGo to do that much. So AlphaGo is probably considering that move, or maybe considering something on the left side of the board. But it would all be in the lower left corner in any case.
So as a professional, when you were coming up, they're really moving along.
Yeah, it's going to be a quick game.
That's good news for our viewers who are staying up late and having their watch parties.
Well, we don't know for sure yet, but yeah. There could be a whole bunch of Ko's happening. I'm sort of imagining a Ko in the lower right corner.
Well, then we'll get a chance to talk about Ko, but we'll wait till that comes along. And this is a standard.
Well, the shape that white just played here, covering the corner, is a shape that you see a lot when black has the double approach, like going back to this shape. When black has the double approach here, this is a common shape in itself. So this is a shape that you see a lot of. And the fact that white played here and did some stuff first makes it different. This is sort of almost off the map. It's a very unusual shape. Black plays here. I expect that white will play here. And then black has the question of whether he wants to continue on the left side. This looks like a kind of an attractive move too. But in this case, black would be surrounding here and giving some of the left side to white. But this would be really nice. Usually, white does not consider allowing black to take the one stone here, because that would be really bad.
Locally, it would be really bad. Another Japanese word.
The ponuki.
The ponuki.
Yeah, that's a a very efficient way to capture stones when you capture the one stone with only these 4 stones. And it's not a ponnuki if you have extra stones that are sort of wasted in the vicinity. But if you take the one stone with these 4 moves, it's considered to be very, very efficient. And people say it's worth 30 points. It means that black stones are working so well taken off the board that black should have that much advantage. It's not, there's not a concrete 30-point advantage there, but sort of a rule of thumb.
It kind of radiates power, doesn't it?
It radiates power, especially when it's close to the center of the board. When it's on the side, it's slightly less, I think.
Right.
So white did connect here.
Yeah.
And now Sedol, he has a choice. This is a really nice looking move on the
You really want to play
lower
that,
right.
don't you? You really want him to play that.
And then, of course, white will have an option of cutting here or maybe just cutting underneath to get. White will get a nice territory on the left side in return. In this, if white just cuts here, black will probably play something like this, white something like this. We can see that black has succeeded in surrounding this area.
But is that also a reasonable result for white?
Locally, it's about even. I think that the players would have to count the overall score, you might say. The fact that this looks like it's ending with sente for black. Sente is the word for initiative. It means that black's going to be able to move to the upper left corner, which is pretty big.
Maybe take away the corner.
Yeah.
So sente means
But of course, we can't forget the lower right corner, which is important also.
So we want to put some big places here, big places here.
Right, yeah.
But we're sort of running out of
space.
Right.
Like after these 2 corners are fixed, if we have a peaceful conclusion like this on the lower left, then after that we could be heading towards the end game.
Well, and sente and gote move next, while important throughout the game, become even more critical at this stage of the game, right?
Well, in a local fight like this, we're having, actually, Lee Sedol did play that move. We're having a local fight here.
Oh, you played your move.
Yeah, he played my move. That's good. The fight is pretty vital for a while, and then there comes a point in the game where the value of a move in the vicinity drops pretty dramatically.
Okay.
And for instance, if white cuts here and black plays here, and white plays here, there's a white territory here that is already established, a black territory in this area that is pretty much established. And any moves adding onto that would be, compared to the moves immediately preceding, the next move here is really small.
Especially if you look at moves like that here or here.
And so there's a point where any experienced player will say, oh, so that's finished for now, and look at other points. And so that's the player who has sente to get to one of these places like this first. Like this would sort of waste away most of white's territory. Whereas if white gets sente to play here first, it's it's almost 40 points.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a big difference in that one move. Both players have a lot of choices of how they want to play this corner, so it's a bit complicated.
So we've got some more moves, but before we do that, just to welcome those of you who are just tuning in. This is the Google DeepMind Challenge match. This is game 1 of a 5-game match. We welcome you all to watching our live stream. It's Chris Garlock. I'm the managing editor of the American Go e-journal. You can read all of our stuff on usgo.org. With me, Michael Redman.
Hi.
9-dan professional, one of the top players, who's been it's been an exciting game, I gotta say.
Yeah, it's good that it's moving so fast. It's keeping me busy. Yeah.
We thought we'd have, frankly, we prepared, and we have lots of material that I've been trying to sort of shoehorn in, but the game is moving along so quickly that it's certainly keeping us busy. So we're hoping we're giving you enough material for both the experienced Go players out there and also those of you that are just coming to Go for the first time. For those that you are getting exposed to Go for the first time, there is almost certainly a Go club near you. And we would encourage you to find it. They're full of friendly people who love the game, and we'll be more than happy to show you how to play it as well, which we need more humans playing, especially if the computers are going to be beating up on us soon. So, all right, so this is kind of developed similar to
black,
what you had looked at,
instead of playing
except
this move which I showed,
he
which sort of
extended.
invites white to extend. This is taking more locally and threatening to, and yeah, just being more greedy locally, less potential, more likely that white's going to take Sente, which is what white did. White took Sente to play Hane here. Now AlphaGo is probably considering this move and this move. This is better as far as the left side is concerned, but it has less effect against the black corner, for instance, when black plays something like this and like this.
Oh, so there's still room to
there's still room to live.
Whereas
outright,
or
this would not be 100% alive, but
might
this
be
would
maybe
be
ko.
There would be a potential ko there.
We want a
Well,
ko. I want you to be able to show it a ko, not now.
Yeah, well, there's potential ko's if black does something like this and this. I think there'd be a potential ko anyway.
Gotcha.
But there's all sorts of things that can happen here. But in either case, this will be putting a bit more pressure on the black stone here. Playing one Hane and just leaving it is maybe not so good. Because when black takes here, it's a very efficient shape. Usually you don't do that because this stone will die, of course.
Yeah.
And
it also
it's not out of the question, but it's usually not done. Yeah.
Would you have done this? Because when you showed this originally, you were looking more at this. What's the difference between this and this?
The whole question is what's going to happen if white cuts here?
Oh,
you can see that these two black stones are diagonal. Now, we'll look at one of the ladders. We haven't looked at ladders very much, have we?
No, we haven't. Good. A ladder.
A ladder is one way you can capture a stone.
Okay.
We can see that this white stone is sort of in danger.
Because it only has one
It
liberty.
only has one liberty. In this case, if black just chases it straight, like this, it's a bit dangerous for black because the black stones are running out of liberties too. And when this happens, you suddenly realize that these black stones are an Atari. And so at some point, black wants to reinforce these stones while attacking the white. So let's have black attack from this side. Now, white extends. White is still sort of in trouble. But we see if black plays here, now suddenly white's going to have extra liberties. So black wants to play diagonally, and this diagonal shape, which is creating a kind of a ladder shape, is an example, a relatively small example of a ladder.
Yep.
We can see that white's come to a kind of a dead end here, and it does look sort of like a ladder shape. There is one problem with this ladder is that there's a kind of a forcing move here, which white has to play at a good time. It's probably too late to play it now, but at some point white can play here before escaping. And to allow white to capture this one black stone would be a little bit worrying for most players. I think Sedol might actually try it because these white stones, after black connects here, they're not completely alive yet, but it is a bit of a headache for black to be trying to kill white with this. So that's something that people would be worried about. But if black does answer it, now of course the ladder becomes invalid when black does this.
Right.
We suddenly see that black has one stone in the Atari here. There's a bad shape for black here because white can throw in here, allow black to capture and come through here to kill that black group. So then we have to think of ways to handle this cut without the ladder. And AlphaGo hasn't played a move yet. Oh, he played a move. AlphaGo played a move in the upper right. So white did leave this. There are some ways that black can try to handle this cut without the ladder, like black can try to extend here. And again, white has a forcing move here.
Our people, our friends on Twitter, where you can reach us at the AGA, they liked when you called my move vulgar.
Okay, yeah, they like that part, huh?
They also want you to win a title, so no pressure, but
okay, I'll do that.
maybe next week.
Yeah. And again, these black stones are sort of weak here.
Yeah, a little
they need some more reinforcement, which means that it's a bit dangerous on this side. This would be a bit troublesome for black.
Yeah.
So we return then to this ladder variation, which is scary for both sides.
Right.
Because I think Lee Sedol is probably willing to do this fight. But some players would be a bit intimidated by this kind of a fight inside black's territory, which would be a kind of a disaster if the whole territory falls
Yeah, I was
apart.
kind of counting this for black.
I think Lee Sedol is going to invite that fight. I don't think he's scared of it, actually. But that's something that the players have to think about in the local position. AlphaGo actually left this for the time being and played here. Now this is, remember, we did the life and death thing
that's
here.
right. This is cutting
It's
off
threatening.
the...
If white plays another move here, now this black group is going to be dead.
so that's,
Because even if black plays here and white plays something like this, it looks like black might be making an eye, but actually black is not making an eye. This stone is an Atari. And eventually, to save it, black would have to connect, but you can see black has no eye there now.
right.
So this would kill the black group. Black has one potential eye, but one potential eye is not enough to make a life. So this basically is to recap, it's stopping black from connecting up to the living group here. So once white plays here, black has to protect here.
Right, which is, yeah, this is your sequence.
Yeah, and again, he could have played from this side to make more territory, but that would sort of damage the right side. So he plays from this side.
It's a very nice sort of fine point. I would frankly be tend to go...
To take the one stone,
It just
yeah.
seems like more, but
yeah.
It definitely has an effect
And
on
now
the
to
right
look
side.
at the right side, there's a weak point here.
Right.
But for the time being, black's okay.
You're worried about having enough stones, aren't you?
Right. Now this is what they call a semi-eye or a fight to capture. Again, I'm using a Japanese term. These white stones and these black stones here are both cut off. They're both diagonally cut off, but white only has 2 liberties left, black has 3, so black's winning the semi-eye. So white doesn't have anything there. So AlphaGo jumps in here.
I wondered if that was possible, but it
Oh, look at Sedol, he's sort of laughing. I think I saw a laugh on his face. He was sort of amused that AlphaGo was, I think he was slightly wryly amused that it would be so aggressive because this is a big difference from what it was before.
it's a nice point though, right?
It's a nice point. It's a commonly played move. It's still going to be a difficult, complicated variation. But for instance, if black plays from above and white pushes against the black stone like this, we can see white sort of sliding along the side here. And there is a kind of a potential connection to this weak point here that white can try later on. I was just showing that white loses the fight to capture, but sometimes white can do something like this from the side to threaten the entire black group. So this is a nice little attack here that white has started.
And black can't resist by, say, standing up.
I'm pretty sure that that's something that Lee Sedol is thinking about. Again, the potential here, the aji, as I was saying before, is going to play a part in this. Let's see, white might play once here. And then maybe the order of moves is pretty tricky. Maybe white will cut once here because there's a cut here left. If we assume black answers that. Then again, at some point, white would probably have wanted to play this exchange. But we can see that there is some potential for white with something like this. It's really better if white has already played this exchange to add some potential there. Mm-hmm. This looks like it's a tricky variation.
It's very tricky.
Yeah.
I'm really nervous.
You're nervous for Lee Sedol, huh?
It just looks scary.
It's a scary variation. So black has to be really careful about how he reads out this fight here.
It's another one of these razor edge kind of things. I mean, there's no room for.
Well, really, white has to be aggressive here because black is building such a large territory in this area that probably even surrounding the upper left corner at some point would not be good enough for white.
Right.
So white has to get some extra points on the right side first, and hopefully sort of settle an advantage for white in the lower right corner. White, at this point, black can still make a living shape by just playing here. White wants to sort of, that's what they call miai. It's two interchangeable points, right?
Right. If I take one, you take the other.
If white takes that corner, then black will be able to play first in this corner and make a living shape. And so white wants to sort of change that equation by mixing things up here, and hopefully getting a position where it's more difficult for black to make a life for this stone. So this is pretty high technique.
So I was going to ask you, that was my next question, was, again, you looked at the October games between AlphaGo and Fan Hui. What's your feeling about how the program is playing now? Is it about what you expected? Are you seeing anything?
I think it's stronger than it was then. Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
and that's based on, is it based on?
Well, it made a number of mistakes in those 5 games.
Right.
And mistakes that I could easily see. And I think a number of pros have actually commented on them in blogs and stuff. A lot of it is in non-English languages. I'm not seeing such obvious mistakes. I might be missing them, but I'm not seeing such obvious mistakes in its play today. So I think it's looking a lot better. And they did have a very complicated fight in the beginning of the game. And it didn't really go too far off, I don't think.
It did.
I think capturing these 2 stones maybe gave black an advantage at that point.
It felt very...
Yeah. But even so, I think that white is stronger than it, definitely stronger than it was before.
Okay. So again, you're watching the Google DeepMind Challenge match. This is game 1 out of 5 to come. It's going to be an exciting week. Chris Garlock, I'm with the American Go e-Journal. I'm with Michael Redmond, a professional game here in this first match. And we're into our second hour of play. Ticking down, it's what, 58 minutes?
Well,
and
already the
time?
third hour. They both used 1 hour each.
Yeah,
More
no,
than
so
an
it's-
hour
it's-
each.
yeah,
Yeah.
time per player. And I'm just checking the time here, and they're
About the same.
They're about even. So there were some questions on Twitter about the time, and keeping up about
About the
that's one
same.
thing.
They both have about 57 minutes.
Right. So when you were studying to become a professional and then get stronger, what were the kinds of things that you would do as a young professional?
Well, I was sort of a special case because I was older than most of the aspiring pros, most of the insei they call them, people who were hoping to become a professional.
Okay.
Were a few years younger than I. I was when I actually became an insei, when I entered the school for aspiring pros, I was 14 years old, and most of them were younger than my
Okay.
Yeah. There was a 6-year-old, really young people. Actually, it was difficult for them to settle down and actually concentrate on their game. So I'm not sure it was good for all of the kids. But, I was definitely behind as far as age was concerned. And I also had the problem that I had very little experience in playing strong players in America. It was before we had internet.
Right.
I had no opportunity to play strong players. Like I would go off to Los Angeles once every 3 months, and they would have a tournament there, and that was usually old men playing. And they said I was a prodigy.
Not a lot has changed.
And they said I was a genius, and I had to go to Japan, and I believed them. They didn't really know. Looking at it now, I know that they weren't really right, but I was a
What do you
genius
mean?
up to the point I arrived in Japan. Then there were geniuses who were maybe more genius.
Well,
When I
think
was
that-
behind in age, that was a big factor.
Right.
And so my big problem was that I didn't really have experience. I didn't have enough games under my belt to have an opinion about a position.
Right.
It's just like AlphaGo's database. It needs to have a lot of games,
That's-
and humans need that too. And I didn't have an opinion about a certain position. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so that was my big problem. So the first thing my teacher had me do was that he had me play a lot of games, and it didn't really matter who I played. And he forced me to play teaching games against players weaker than myself, and he made me play 3-on-1s and stuff like that. So I had to play 3 people. In order to keep up with him, I had to make quick choices, and so I was being forced to make snap judgments and making mistakes, of course. And then I learned from them. And so I just needed all of those games to be played, which was a special case. Japanese youngsters and Chinese, Koreans now have a lot of opponents, strong opponents to play with, and they do all the time, and they do it on the internet and face-to-face, of course. So there's a big problem I had there, which was eventually solved by playing a lot of games.
But as you say, this is very similar to AlphaGo, which has been, doing its homework in terms of playing millions and millions of games.
And getting experience, and getting, basically, it's just like humans do, in that it makes a judgment based from that database. The difference being that a computer doesn't forget, I suppose. Yeah, and humans have a more fuzzy memory of
some
what
of
happened.
us
Yeah.
more than others.
Yeah, and we don't really need to have a clear-cut memory of something that happened. When in the end, we have what we call intuition, or a bad feeling, which probably stems from some data that we had at some point years ago,
Which may or
which
may
we
not
don't
still
really
be valid.
consciously remember.
Right.
That's what I think. Partly what intuition is, in a way. It's a kind of a blurred memory, in some cases at least.
It kind of reminds me of I forget what I was reading about, that so many of us are afraid of snakes, even though we may not have seen them.
Yeah, they're somewhere in the DNA.
Because in our DNA,
Yeah,
you heard
yeah.
that noise, you knew this is, I don't know what this is, but this is bad. I need to get up in a tree. And so, here it comes, there we go.
Yeah.
See, I was going to play that right away. I don't know what he was thinking about.
He was giving us some time to rest.
We appreciate that. Oh, I'm going to get some water. So this great. Oh. So AlphaGo is kind of putting the time screws to him now. It didn't even.
Well,
it's all driven.
It's interesting because in some points it was free, and it had an obvious move. It was taking some time
to do it.
But this also, locally, it's kind of, this move that White just played was a forced move. It
Right.
was the only move that anyone would think of. And so it's pretty natural to play it quickly.
Yeah, the next move is. Can we look at what
Okay,
Black's
Black has,
options are here?
the normal move would be to play here. And now if Black is worried about the right side group, some players would be worried about the right side group. The easy way to settle this position is to play a double hane here.
Right.
Hane is a diagonal move against your opponent's stone, so that's a hane. And it's double hane when you have 2 in a row. White will cut here. And now if White connects, trying to save all of White's stones, this looks sort of awkward shape for White. Black has the advantage that all his stones along here are solidly connected. And when White tries to escape with this stone, we can see that Black is sort of connecting up to the lower right corner. And so these stones are going to be safe also. And it's just going to be these White stones left behind. So this would be bad for White.
And it's difficult for White to actually.
It's difficult for White to actually make 2 eyes. What White will actually do in this case, let's go back. Sedol didn't play that move.
He played my move.
He played your move, yeah.
Played my move.
White will play here and
I
capture
tell you,
the
this
1
never
stone.
works out for me, but
And Black will be able to capture the 2 stones.
right.
Locally, this is a good result for Black because it's going to be much more difficult for Black to make life here.
So difficult, but not impossible. What's he saying? Oh, keep talking.
Okay. Okay, that's good. And so this is bad
can do
for black because this stone is going to be sort of isolated. And it's going to be more difficult for black to make a life here.
Oh, but I was
Especially since
asking,
we're
it's
assuming-
difficult, but not, because to me it just looks, it's actually maybe possible to get a ko.
Well, you know, if black played forcing moves like this, black would be able to get some kind of, maybe a ko, but there would be damage done on the other side. And so that makes a big difference to the lower right corner.
Break time. Ooh. So we're going to take
A short break.
we're going to take a short break.
Okay.
All right. And we'll be back momentarily. Just me. You're not going anywhere. You stay put.
What do we do with the mics? All right, keep talking. Yeah, okay. So now white's going to continue maybe with a cut or a hane here. White's sort of gone too far to be playing this move now, I think. It's probably too late to force this move at this point because black will probably just continue on this side and capture these 3 stones. So white plays a hane here maybe. Or a cut. A cut would be threatening to capture this one black stone. This would capture the one black stone. Black would have the option of trying to connect underneath. Something like this, we have a white group here which has 2 liberties and a black group that has 2 liberties. Black will be able to squeeze white, losing the stones here, but connecting the rest of his group underneath like this. And this would be maybe an even result, not so bad for black because black does have more potential in the lower left corner in this case, and does have what looks like a living shape now. So let's get back to the game position. Interesting. White is trying to exchange this move for this, at which point white will already have potential for, say, a ko, for instance, in this case. It looks like it's going to develop into a ko if black plays an Atari here. Otherwise, black might just play on this side, which looks like it could develop into a kind of a trade of something on this side for these stones. I can see Sedol is sort of, he's focused very much on the board, into his reading posture, getting really serious about the reading here. This is sort of kind of I was expecting white to play something on this side first. Playing here first is sort of unexpected, actually. But locally, what white is trying to do is to exchange with this black stone to get maybe a little bit more room for the white group when white does something like this.
That's almost...
hoping for a ko, sort of.
Right.
White probably has some ko threats inside black's territory or against the black group here. On the other hand, I think Sedol is probably... I'm saying Sedol. I'm not really sure whether the correct pronunciation is Li or E. I think it's written both ways. This move would be more focused on capturing these 3 stones, and maybe black would be willing to give away something here. And the profit would be that the white is played from inside once here, and it makes a big difference to the following fighting in the lower right corner. So this is something I would be thinking of right now. It's either this move or something like this, I think. And a few other possibilities, like there would be the possibility of black needs 2 moves here to make a connection, like black needs to protect this cutting point with the tiger's mouth again, and then black will need to come back again here. So using 2 moves here to connect up while white does something on the side would be a bit painful for black.
Right.
So black really wants to either capture these 3 stones with something starting with this move. White would probably dodge to this side, and then we don't really know what's going to happen. And these 3 stones would probably...
Up being such a problem.
It's a problem for black, but it's going to probably capture these 3 stones. It looks like black will be able to get something back on the side with the bonus of having an advantage now on this side. And so that's one trade that they have to think about, of course, in context of the whole board. Otherwise, what happens if black just decides not to give up anything? And then white would be trying to make a life with moves like this.
But this is pretty, I mean, all out on both sides at this point, right?
Oh yes,
The
white
battle has been just
basically white
completely-
has to accomplish something on the right side. Playing peaceably is not good enough in this position.
Can we just do a quick overall analysis of game status where we're
Well,
at?
yeah. Well, the whole fight started here. In the fight, white had to run out into the center. Black captured these 2 stones. So black did take a profit here. And then eventually black has now surrounded what looks like a fairly sizable territory. In the meantime, white made some territory here,
Right.
has a potential territory here. A lot will hinge on whether white does play the one more move in the upper left corner, which will make this into a
this is
sizable
about
territory,
40
almost
points.
as big as this one. At this time, it's not really worthwhile to give an exact count anyway.
Right.
But white would sort of catch up in territory if white can play here. But just doing that without this attack on the right side would probably be not good enough. So white had to try something a bit more. White would like to sort of gain some points here
Right.
and then move to the upper left. That's white's game plan at this point. And without accomplishing anything here, white would be slightly behind. But there does look like white has some potential to do something here. So,
The balance
game is in the balance right now.
Is still,
Yeah.
is still fairly even. It's interesting because, you know, it's because there's so much still not going on.
There's a lot of uncertain areas. Like this area being left like this, it's such a big difference whether black plays there or white plays there first. That the timing of how they get to that corner first is going to make a big difference in how the game develops.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course there's also the uncertainty in the lower right corner because we don't really know whether this black stone is alive or dead yet. It's in between. It's either alive or dead, depending on what happens in the following fighting. And either way, but it depends on how that develops. If it dies in a profitable way for black, then it can still die, but it depends on a lot of things. So there's a lot of uncertain things happening here on the right side, and there's the upper left corner. And the combination of how that turns out will be decisive in this game.
This technique with the invading here, that's a pretty high level.
Well, anyone can see that there seems to be some kind of potential here.
Right.
But I think the fact that the judgment that it has to do this to win the game, and that there are other feasible moves. This is also a feasible move. It's hard to choose between them. And white doesn't know for sure that this is going to be a better result, I don't think, usually. So the choice here is that just discarding the other moves that don't do this, which probably have less potential of winning, and choosing the move that has the most potential to get a win. There's a lot of variations here. Like I was showing you a variation where white got a thick shape here, which sort of almost killed the lower right corner, even after losing these invading stones. So there are variations where white can die here and profit from it.
As long as he can do it in a way that he's making some profit there. And
right,
ideally
yeah.
it's in Sente so he can go back and play
That would be ideal. So just to go back to that variation to show what I was saying, in the variation where black covers here, instead of the game move here, we do see that white is getting a lot of profit in return for sacrificing these 2 stones. From after the first couple of moves, this is sort of a forced sequence. But then the cornerstone here is going to be very difficult to make life. And so white's gained by sacrificing these stones and can move to this corner, so making a big difference. So that's one of the possibilities that were obviously in white's game plan.
Okay.
But there's a lot of variations here that I'm not showing you. And I don't have it read out myself. It looks like Sedol is, oh, there we go, I got one.
There's.
And now it's a question of how he's going to capture these 3 stones.
But he's going to have to give up.
And he's going to give up these 3 stones probably. And how that actually works out is like a move like this or like this would be fairly straightforward. But he might be trying something, oh, there we go. Well, I'm guessing his moves. Provided he wins, then maybe I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. And
But
so
this
now,
is a local profit.
a
for
local
white.
profit for white, yes.
So what we're looking at now is a sequence of.
Well, white is probably going to play some kind of move there. This would be a kind of a normal looking move.
So that locks up the corner profit.
That would capture these black stones here. And there would still be a little bit of aji here of a move like this or like this.
So black
would probably
must
put
play.
another stone in here.
But then
of course, this would be, the next move would be really big. So yeah, white could play away. White might just leave it at this point. But you can see that white is sort of damaging his prospects on this side. Now the next move here in this corner for white is getting to be a bit difficult. Like if white plays this, which looks sort of natural, black can still do something like this and make a lot of trouble in this corner. If white comes from underneath, white has a cutting point here to protect. And black can push along. And this solid wall here that has sort of appeared suddenly because of white's attack here enables black to connect up like this. Black's going to be able to connect up.
So white wants to do better than that.
So let's go back to this, assuming this attachment and the wedge here. If white plays here, now this is a complicated position in which probably these 2 stones will escape, and this stone might die, but it's going to be a very small white territory.
Okay.
It's not going to be very good for white. So it's sort of a headache for white to try to find a way to kill this stone. In fact, white has to worry about black attacking white. And so there's a negative aspect for all of this profit that white is taking here. Although it's a local profit, there's some loss here. So my instinct is that maybe this is playable for black. Maybe it's good for black, that is. But actually black pushed through here once. After black played the attachment, white covered here, and black pushed through once. That's probably going to be an exchange with this move. He's sort of asking white, was white going to play here, or is white going to play here? And both of these moves work. Only if white plays here, let's see. Both of these work. It's hard to choose, actually. In either case, I think black will put one more stone in here.
So it looks to me like.
Oh, but white chose this one.
Yeah, that's solid.
And black did put the stone in here. So locally, you can see that these black stones are already dead. If black plays here, white plays here, usually you would expect black to play a connecting move, right? In which case, white can capture immediately, or white can even play something like this. White has 1, 2, 3, 4 liberties. Black only has 3.
Okay.
In a fight to capture, the player with the more liberties generally wins. There's some nuances there that I'm not going to go into. Yeah. I was going to drift into a code.
You want to get to the code.
Or what black probably will do is just play here. And then it's a bit more troublesome for white, maybe.
Oh, that's.
Well, it's going to be Sente.
Sente, yeah.
And it's not such a big territory. And so that's what black has done. Let's see what the territory
Feels
looks
like they're really fighting even more so over Sente at this point.
They're fighting over Sente. The lower right corner, the value of the lower right corner is still pretty big, because now it looks like black can really get a very big life here.
Again, because of the
Or
wall.
maybe black can even play here, which would be a more aggressive move. I'm not sure which black will choose. But still, I think the upper left is maybe bigger. There you go. The operator had a nice, he slapped that stone down. I think the operator liked that move.
I think he's been wanting to play that for
Yeah.
a while.
Now this is a standard, we call it a squeeze. It's a technique, a lot of stones to capture those two black stones. Like this black stone is already dead, but by extending it to make two stones, if white covers here, white can kill the black stone. But black will be able to make a wall here
nice
in the process.
Right.
So this is sort of the aim of that move. If white decides he doesn't like that, white can try something fancy like this, which is usually a good move. And that when black does try to make the squeeze, we can see that the wall that was straight before, there's a little chink in black's armor. So there's a bit of a weakness here. So usually this is a better way for white to play.
Okay.
But in this game, let's go back to that. Black plays here, if white plays here. We do see that this side, white's group doesn't look so healthy after all. So if black does something like this, and something like this, we have a potential squeeze from this side, which is looking a bit painful for white. So white just went ahead and took it the normal way. So that's a nice little squeeze for black.
And then here.
Yeah.
So we're actually, this is getting into the, we're moving into endgame.
We're getting into the end game. Let's see.
And this was the last sort of big fight here. I think this one's coming up, right?
There's something going to happen in the lower right corner, yes.
And again, they're about even on time.
About 45 minutes each, yeah. So let's see, the territory is, that upper left is in the vicinity of 40 points now.
This is 40.
In the vicinity, yeah.
Okay.
It still
this
depends
has
on what happens
changed
along the
now.
borderline. That would be more like 10 points for white.
10 points.
And
That's
then
50.
there's a bit more territory for black than white. So just a few points for black. We could call it slightly less than Komi.
But for white,
That's 40
40 plus 10 is 50.
Oh no,
plus-
we'll just say that these
the
territories
same.
sort of rule out, and then black has a little extra. There's about 10 points in this corner maybe.
Okay.
Oh, white hasn't played yet. White probably wants to take those two stones.
I mean, white has
Yeah.
to do, but white's thinking about.
Yeah. And now white has about 10 points in that corner. So white has about 50 points against this territory, which is pretty big. Let's see, how big is that? That's about 50 points. So the territory is pretty close, actually.
Folks can see that this is the territory, and then this is a little.
That's the wall. That's the wall surrounding the
Right.
territory. And then black has some potential on the left side, and we don't really know exactly what's going to happen in the lower right. So there's still a lot of things that are undecided.
So this is getting. I'm getting butterflies in my stomach here.
Oh, really?
Well, it's a pretty big moment. I mean, one way or the other. In this first game, either AlphaGo is going to defeat a 9-down professional, or Lee Sedol is going to. It's. I'm serious. Maybe I just need some lunch, but because it's getting to this point of the game where and this is actually a big thing. I remember we talked a few years ago about the end game, which is, really where you get down, and then I gotta think that this. this has got to be sort of in the wheelhouse for AlphaGo, right? I mean, this is, you know, calculations, counting. This is what AlphaGo
It's probably a strong point, yeah.
does really, really well. At least it's no slouch. But it's all about Sente, who's got the advantage, who gets to play, where can one player play away for a moment, or the timing. I mean, could this come?
It's still a very complicated endgame.
It's a very complicated endgame. Could this historic game come down to a half-point game? I mean, that would be cool, right?
I think that if that happens, we're going to run out of stones.
You've been worried about the stones.
I've been worrying about the stones, yeah.
Sorry, they're going to find us some more stones.
Yeah.
They're making them even as we speak. They're shaking it. Okay, no.
Okay, white connected here. Let's see, where did black play the?
Oh, just a straight connection, and not that you'd looked at the hanging
black
connection.
took the one stone here, and white connected here.
Right. Right.
Well, he's decided. AlphaGo has decided that the cut is probably not going to work.
And so it's just not even with
that. He's decided it's not going to work, I think. And so maybe white is just threatening this one. Because if the cut would work, then white would have chosen to play here, I think.
Okay.
So he's decided that maybe the cut doesn't work. And so maybe this is a more
This is the normal,
secure, a more sure move.
Because, yeah. I'm sorry, I've got my nervous energy going here. I just, you see me when I'm watching tennis, I just get up and walk around. It just gets too nerve-wracking. But there's still a lot of game left to go here.
Well, now that black has played this move, there is a large move capturing these 3 white stones. Black can now capture the 3 white stones. So that's.
But this is a calculation that is worth a certain amount. That's right.
It's about 16, 18 points. It potentially has something to do with white's ice space. So if white gets a territory in this corner, for instance, then it won't matter. But if black, for instance, plays something like this or this, and lives in the lower right corner, then capturing this would be an issue because it would potentially take away eye space for the whole white group here. And they say big groups don't die, but even if they don't die, they have to at some point make eyes.
Right.
And so that could be painful when you have such a small space. So the lower right corner is probably bigger than the capture here, and it has something to do with the fight.
So it's
okay. I played the right movie.
Of course you did. You're the 9-dot
Wow.
professional.
Yeah.
Don't sound so surprised. Again, one of the interesting things about the game is that sort of it moves into the end game, and that's certainly. But even it can still turn back into. Fights
It can turn back into a fight. Yeah.
Right.
Still.
So it's not like that's just done, settled.
Like here, if white cuts, as I was saying, this move here is going to be to affect the ladder here that I was showing. And black will not be able to answer it directly, so black will play like this. In this position, it's getting to be looking a bit more safe for black because black has some extra stones here.
Right.
And more depth to the net surrounding white, so it looks like it's not going to work for white maybe. But there's some potential for some kind of a fight there. If white plays here, then white can be relatively safe. White can be pretty sure that this is going to work. Although that might actually depend on some things. Let's just do a variation for that. If black tries to cut this white stone off, black plays here.
Things don't go well, do they?
Now the ladder is not going to work for black because this is going to be an Atari, right? It's going to attack this black stone.
Right.
So black pushes once more and pushes from this side because these stones are in trouble too, right? White escapes. Black has to push once more.
Aye.
White escapes, and black has to come here. So black's really busy, but it's not a sure thing for white either. So this is another fight that they have to think about.
I would love to know how the Google team, the Google Mind team is. They must. If I'm this nervous, they. Because as far as I know, this is the. Okay, so it did.
Okay.
Yep.
Maybe it's going to happen. It's as if the players can hear me.
Well,
You think they have a mic? Maybe my mic is, they're listening to me.
Oh.
Even the computer. But yeah, we deemed that to be a bit too dangerous, so we just
Right.
backed off. So locally, white can connect here. Locally, the correct move for black would be something on top.
So just give away a little bit.
Give a little bit. It's going to reduce black's territory to something around maybe less than 40 points. So white's used one move, but it's if white continues here to play the second move, white's used 2 moves now. That is a sizable reduction.
Right. That's worth about how many
20
points?
well, you see there's a follow-up move
here.
there.
Oh, 'cause so black has
it's
to-
about 20 points. Well, I don't know if black will answer it that far, but it's about 20 points. So, but now black has played here.
We're both up. We're both
Standing
I feel
up
like
to
I
it
should
now.
take my jacket off and roll up my sleeves here. It's just-
Black is sort of threatening to make a big territory here also. Oh, sorry, I better put that stone back.
yeah, this is actual.
White hasn't added a stone to that yet. The lower right corner is still very big at this point. Like a black move here would make about 20 points of black territory. Whereas a white move, for instance, a white move like this and like this would make a life in the corner.
Right.
And the problem is, what about the eyes for these guys? So let's just have a hypothetical
You're talking about when you
variation
say these guys, you mean
the
this
whole white
huge
group. Yeah. That AlphaGo didn't do that, but let's just have a hypothetical variation like this. And where are white's eyes? Let's have something like this. Black's group here is more or less connected.
Okay.
So what happens if black plays something like this or this to attack the whole white group? So that's something that the players have to be thinking about. And it looks sort of dangerous for white. White didn't do that, so let's go back to the game.
Okay. So
Okay, white played the Hane.
Closing in on it here.
Black extends. So white can connect up here, but there's still a cutting point here. But if black cuts there, this is another complicated variation we're getting into. What happens in the corner here, white can push through and cut here.
Right.
And captures these 3 stones. So this would be bad for black.
Okay.
So if black plays something like this, white crawls into the corner. That would be bad for black too. The problem is what happens if black plays something like this? It's much more difficult. White would play something like this.
So AlphaGo is continuing to play at a really high level.
It looks like a professional level.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is whatever the result is. I've got to be really
I think it's a
significantly
success already.
impressed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. That's amazing.
It's all that I sort of hoped for and
Yeah.
expected. White has a choice basically if the move I was just showing.
Oh wow.
So this is the stronger move.
Yeah.
Black has a choice now. If black comes here, this is closing off the corner. But white can then push here.
Here and then there's the right.
Now, if black cuts here, this is going to be bad for black. Because these 3 stones will be killed.
Corner as well,
Corner
I think,
doesn't
right?
really die, but it's bad anyway.
Right.
If black plays something like this, black is beginning to make eye shape. And maybe white will play something like, white could even play a ko here. Now we can get a ko. And black cuts here. And this is the ko shape.
Oh right.
Yeah. And so this kind of thing could happen. Otherwise,
Which would put the whole
it would put the whole corner in trouble.
play.
The other choice that black has is to play on top like this.
Sort of safely.
Yes. Oh, that's what he did. Okay. Now, if white pushes through here, this is not going to be good for white. If white cuts, black can play an Atari, and then cover the corner. This is going to be an advantage for black.
Right.
So white will continue into the corner. Black will probably play something like this shape. and white will counter with this kind of shape. And maybe black will be forced to play here. We can see that white is getting a living shape.
This is a big plus for white, huh?
Yeah, and there's a kind of a bonus too, because white has this move next, and the cut here. So white can reduce black's territory here while saving.
Wow. Yes.
What white has to be careful about is that it doesn't really make eyes for the white group.
Oh, that's a false eye.
That's a false eye, so black can win the semi-eye here. Yes. You know, this is really complicated, but the whole white group is sort of in jeopardy here. You didn't find it complicated?
No, I'm
It's
totally
too easy
reading
for
it
you,
out.
right?
I'm totally
Okay.
on it. I've
Yeah,
got it.
I'll do something a bit more interesting then. And of course, in this whole variation, there's still an issue with white's eyes in the corner. We need more stones.
We do need more stones. Okay, all right.
If they go to the Osei, we'll need more stones.
You keep running out all these variations where things die, so
Yeah, well, that happens.
then we won't need the stones.
Well, yeah, that would make my job easier.
That's what they're going
White
for.
is pushed through. I think pushing through is sort of probably not the best move because it looks bad to me for white to try to cut. So I would have expected white to just scroll immediately.
The descent. Yeah.
Yeah, pushing through once and then playing here. Nothing really wrong with that. Only this exchange is probably better not played.
Interesting. Okay, so so it's a timing, a sequence.
It's better with others. Probably not so good. This looks bad for white. First of all, it's a really bad shape with no eyes for the white. So when black does get to this point, it's really going to be dangerous for white. And the fact that the corner is, so white did play in the corner. That makes it a relatively minor mistake, but it is better not to have that exchange in. He hasn't played that move yet. I'll just leave it on the board.
You're predicting.
And
Well,
so
this
if
is-
black plays that way, white will play here. And white is going to be alive in the corner. And after that, white will have to move back to the upper right.
You are watching some historic moment in a historic game here as we come into our last section of this Google DeepMind challenge match here in Seoul. This first match between AlphaGo and Sedol. And I think, it's really lived up. I see some nodding heads here in the audience. Just a tremendously historic and exciting
Well, I'm excited
game.
by the moves.
Just,
in the game.
just when you were sort of getting ready to kind of count up the end game,
they're fighting again.
They're fighting again. So this is quite exciting, and now you're worried about having enough stones again. That's an okay problem to have. We'll figure that out. But this is not the same program that you saw.
It's grown stronger. Yes.
Yeah. So it's
Well, it's really exciting to see it fighting like this because in the previous 5-game match, it was basically playing a fairly defensive game and only fighting when Fang Hui forced it
provoked
to.
it, yeah.
And Fang Hui was playing some slightly unreasonable moves, which made the fighting very easy for AlphaGo. And it played those fights perfectly most of the time,
Right.
for its credit. But I think this game is different in that both players are sort of playing pretty aggressively,
Yeah.
and is sort of holding its own against the world championship.
Yeah, and I mean it's Yi has been sort of giving him these fights, and AlphaGo is not backing off or backing down. So it really
Playing a
feels
really
like
interesting
this,
game. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see the last I checked, the Twitter feed was sort of blowing up with folks who are just the level. I mean, just looking at it as a game, forget about who's playing it. It's just an exciting.
It's an exciting game. All this stuff that's happening on the right side here, we can see that white figured that he had to do something unusual and not just some bland endgame move. And he's trying stuff.
Yeah, from here it's just been
Right, yeah, and it's working to a certain extent. So he said it'll work. I'm calling AlphaGo he now. They're beginning to catch up with me. They're finding the sequence that I was showing. Actually, this whole sequence here is pretty obvious. So that's why I'm feeling happy just leaving it on the board. But the players are, at least Sedol would be thinking about things that are going to be happening next.
Okay.
The next fight. Maybe there's a big move on the left side of the board, but for the time being, the question is how is White going to settle his? White has to play a move to settle his big group in the
He needs a, he
on
owes
the
a
right
move
side of the
for
board.
this
Yeah,
group.
he needs
right?
one more move there.
What's the sort of stylish way to settle that?
To capture those
Just
black
do a
stones, something
turn.
like this maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. The other one would be this one, but black gets a squeeze anyway, so it's not really.
Just finish it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's gotten really, I think, the focus in the room, and I'm sure next door as well in the Korean commentary room, it's just like, it almost feels like everybody's holding their breath as we're sort of waiting to see how this plays out in this moment. And you can't tell right now, right? I mean, you can't
White,
you can't
White
call
is
this.
gaining territory.
Yeah.
I'd say
feels
so.
like-
It looks like White has gained a lot of territory in the corner here,
Right.
and is going to put a stone in here, I expect. And so let's see. That was about
That's-
40 points over there.
Right.
White has something close to 10 points over there. I'm not really doing an exact count. But it is in the vicinity of 10 points.
Okay, so 10, another 10 here.
And then there's about 10 points here.
40, 50,
well,
60.
This isn't very much because black is getting territory here too. But let's see, 40, 50, 40, 50, 60.
Right.
A bit more. So black really needs about 70 to win the game. And this territory here is shrunk a bit if white gets this. So playing here is a really big move. But look, it's going to be Miai with a move somewhere around here. That's another big move. That's probably bigger. So black maybe wants to play this one. Let's just have
Let's sort of, go take
an
a look at-
endgame.
Right.
Yeah, just a potential endgame sequence.
Okay.
White will to continue answering that. Let's say black does it this way. You know, I can't tell. It's probably going to be.
It's really close.
It's going into the
really,
endgame.
really, really close. That's.
You know, that hand movement was me counting up all the territory.
I thought so.
Yeah.
Well,
But I'm not very sure.
I saw Yi doing a thing I've often seen the top players do, where I thought it was a nervous tick, and it's actually
he's counting.
Yeah. So that's where we are right now. It's so
He's at a point where you can start. All right, white played the Atari from above.
from above. Okay. Same.
Let's see. Why did it do that? It could be a small loss actually. I think this was the better move.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it-
That's. It doesn't really have anything to do with that.
Okay.
That's a forcing move for white anyway. Or maybe not. Oh yeah, it did. Well. A bit strange. And then black is cutting here. White's going to answer that. And white can live here with just this way.
Okay. This is the point of the game, and we sort of talked about this and throughout the game, and this is, I actually don't know how many, let's see the number on the moves, but the whole game has been played on this razor's edge, with each player pushing the other and answering, and then in the end game, where as a top pro, that's because
looks
something
bad,
that loses a point or two at this point of the game.
I think it's a small loss, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but a small loss in what could be, a point or two game. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm thinking that you know, maybe there's something else going on there.
Yeah, it could be, yeah.
So there's this area, and there's this area still to play around.
I don't think AlphaGo has played this move quite yet.
Oh, we have a little thing covering
There's
up
something
the,
covering it, but I don't think it's played there.
I'm looking at the actual board, and I'm not seeing it on the
Yeah.
actual board, so I think you're right.
But I would expect this move. This is a local correct move.
It's pretty much
It's fairly big.
driven, I think, right? You kind of have to.
And AlphaGo is actually using more time than Sedol.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Wow! How did that happen?
It's
Last
on
I
a-
checked,
It's
AlphaGo was
using
ahead
more
on
time, yeah.
Man, there's so many questions I want to ask the team.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It's just the excitement, the edge of the seat. In fact, I'm not even on my. I don't want to sit down. And there's so. I mean, actually, you know, if you look at all of the play that's left, there it goes. All right. There's still a fair number of points in play, right?
Now black's trying to squeeze the corner, playing some forcing moves. White plays here, then this is alive, and there are no more forcing moves for black. If white plays here, it's alive anyway, but black can force with the cut here. Next there's this move, which kills the corner group. And so the question is, what happens if white plays here, and black's going to play something like this? This could be trouble for white's corner group, actually.
I don't know if I can.
Are you all right?
Yeah, all right. You need to talk me down here.
Actually, so that
See,
raises
we
the
don't-
question of,
We don't have enough stones for you to throw them away.
right. Why did white not play something like this first, which would be maybe better than what we're seeing developing here?
Is this
That would be
Sente
forcing, yeah, black would have
for
to pull
for here
back.
to cut these
And
off?
then white could have moved to that side. But white did not play that exchange, so this gives black an opportunity to force here. And so usually white would just cover here, but the payoff for black is that this cut is forcing against the corner.
And he's picked up
Picking up this stone.
like 5 points.
And without this kind of exchange, if white has a stone here, which it would be a really big move because white could follow up with this,
Oh, that's right.
and forcing the capture and capture this stone. Black can connect underneath, but
It's
this
a
whole
big
territory
loss.
would disappear.
Right.
Sorry. So black plays here first. Now if white did
Yep,
cover.
yep.
Oh, so now black gets this in Sente. So this is a nice sequence for black. White will have to put one more stone in here.
I don't know if you guys.
So white has about 70 points.
So white has 70.
In the almost 70 points, yeah.
And what's black? Well, this is not finished yet, right? This is. And white can't play away, right?
White doesn't want to sacrifice those stones. It still looks like it could be a close game. I think black will probably play towards this, well, that sequence here. And white will connect. This is a big move.
So this is the sequence in here.
So these are both big moves. The beauty for white is that they're sort of miai. So if black doesn't like that, he might try something a bit more aggressive to try to take Sente on that.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is proceeded as I expected. And it's a question of what black does. If black moves to the left side, or actually coming down here is also a big move.
Yeah, he just squeezed.
Yeah. Coming down here is also a big move, but this would sort of be the last point. White might actually try something a bit closer to look at the hole here.
To erase him,
Yeah. But anything in this area would be a really big 20-point move.
Okay.
So I would expect that black is going to try something around here maybe. This Atari here against the two stones, the two white stones, is really big because after black captures this, white's going to be in trouble in the
Right.
corner. White's going to need a move there, and it's still going to be a smaller territory. So white probably wants to answer this, and then black can. I'm getting the feeling that maybe that's not going to be good enough.
Oh, really?
So I would be thinking maybe of playing a more an attempt to force white, an attempt to take Sente again.
So it's interesting. You have the calculations of AlphaGo against the calculations of Sedol.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really coming down to it.
Yeah.
So when you're doing endgame, and I would think for programming, I mean, this is all fairly straightforward sequences at this point, right? I mean, it's the kind of stuff that you're showing. This is
Well, the large areas are pretty obvious,
right,
and the actual play is still there's still some options like whether black plays an attachment here or just extends. Whether black plays something like this in the lower left corner first, that's a pretty big move, and it's usually going to be forcing. Although it doesn't threaten to kill the white group.
No.
If black plays here, you might have to back off a bit. White can force here. If black plays here, then white's going to force with this to make another eye here. White has two eyes.
Okay.
If black pulls back, then of course white can play at this point.
Right.
And so it's not going to kill the white group.
But it's a territorial loss.
But the continued profit is really big. It amounts to something close to 20 points. So it's almost as big as this, but maybe not quite as big. Oh, he played this one.
Wow. Just closing the door.
So that sort of simplifies things because it limits us to the left side now.
So now this is the area. So let's do a quick
Okay.
count. Let's see where we're at.
Now we're going
right?
to well here.
Okay.
That's 10, 25, 35, 40, 44.
Okay.
So that's 44 points.
Okay.
And I'm not counting these 2 points or any of the points.
All right. So 44.
Oh, sorry. I forgot to 10, 25, 35, 40, 44. You have to subtract these two, so it's 42.
42.
Okay. So it's 6 points here, 48. This is still around 10 points. Let's just forget the details and call it 10 points.
58.
So that's 58. And then if we assume something like this, then that's about slightly less than 10
10
points.
points, right.
So it's
69.
Okay. So let's call it 42, 52, 62, 68. And so black needs more than 70 points, right? Here black has something like, let's see, 10. Black has about 55 points if we have a borderline somewhere around here. And then let's see, this is more than 20 points maybe. 75 and a couple of points here. And so yeah, close.
Really close.
And white's going to be playing something here, so
Right.
that
Just,
border
maybe
is
just a 2-point extension.
yeah.
Or do you think he'll try and
the 2-point extension would be the normal move. White might try something here, and then we would expect a little fight again, a little more fighting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It might be a bit dangerous
my heart
for
can
white.
take it.
But this would be kind of the conservative move, and I have a feeling it could lead to oh, there we go. I have a feeling it could lead to a close game. Oh, before that, white played once here. That was a good move.
That's nice, right?
It probably changes my count to about 1 point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, he's counting.
Well, players do that to count, and they also do it when they're reading sometimes.
Oh, the reading out of sequence.
But it looks like Sedol's counting right now.
Well, remember, and I don't think we talked about this, but Black has to pay Comey, which is I think, 6.5, right?
7.5 points.
7.5.
And we're saying 7.5 points. That's actually it's the Korean or Japanese way of putting it. In the Chinese system, which is they're doing it by the Chinese rules, so the Chinese would call it 3 3/4 of a point of a stone.
That gets
And
right.
in practice, although that's half of the size number, it amounts to the same thing because the size of a stone is generally, you can consider it to be double the size of a point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we're calculating, we also have to take into account the Comey.
Yeah, the Comey, of course. Yes.
Right.
Well, since I'm doing all of this counting sort of in the Japanese style, then I'm going
Okay.
Comey. Yeah.
All right.
And there are some slight differences that can happen because of the Chinese rules. It could make a slight difference in the end result. But usually it doesn't change the result, like the win-loss result.
Okay. So for Black next.
Black
you
is
think
still thinking of how to play the shape on the left side.
the left-hand corner.
And
right?
yes, the lower left corner is definitely a place where Black will want to play a forcing move, maybe. He sort of wants to jump all the way into the 3/3 point, but that's a very thin move because White has a forcing move here.
Right.
And it's if Black answers that, then it's sort of difficult to save that 3/3 point stone. So that's why he's playing here.
That's the straightforward way to go.
Yeah. And next, Black can jump in here, as I showed you before.
Right.
And that would be really big. That move in itself, it reduces what I was saying, almost 10 points to 5 points. And it's making about that much for White. So it's a forcing move that ends with a 10-point profit for Black. So it's sort of a free 10 points. It's pretty likely White will answer it with something like this.
Wow, and look at the time. AlphaGo has got just under 19 minutes, and Yi has about 36 minutes.
Yeah, well, AlphaGo, I think at this point, if we look at the right side of the board, all we have left is fairly small endgame points. Any top pro can play the right side in overtime. Like they have 30-second time limits for each extra after they run out of time, right? Was it 30 seconds?
Yeah, 6 of 30, I think.
6. So any player can play the right side of the board now, can choose the correct moves in 30 seconds. Like
Right.
it doesn't take them any
Right.
time at all.
Right.
The left side is still difficult, but you can see basically that
Nice.
it's going to be over by the time AlphaGo runs out of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's nice.
So this is locally, it's a forcing move,
Looking to maybe.
but he doesn't have this stone, so Black's going to be forcing here maybe first.
Force here, and then so the areas here and here, right? It's,
Yes. So that's the point between the Black and White territory. So if Black surrounds territory with this move, then White can surround some more territory with this move. So it's a pretty big move too.
Yeah. That's worth another
That's almost 10 points in itself.
points. Yeah.
Yes. Looks like a very good move.
That's a great move. I love this move. This is.
And it also adds some strength to this stone. Like without an extra stone there, moves like
Right,
this or
right.
moves like this could cause some confusion there on the left side of the
Cost some
board.
points.
So that really reinforces that, and it limits Black's next move to something like this on the side. So, and it simplifies the Yosei. I think White might be feeling that he's ahead at this point. I see a lot of White's territory. And I count again.
Let's do it. Let's take a
Okay.
look at the count.
It's 10, 20, 30, 40, 44, 43, 47, 40. Let's see, where am I? 10, 20,
while Michael's doing that, just a reminder to folks out there watching and that are staying up to watch this amazing, historic first round game in the Google DeepMind challenge match between AlphaGo and Sedol. We are getting into the key end moments here where, yeah. Man, I'm really hoping for a half-point game. I'm just, that would be so cool. Move it. I'm sorry, and what was your count? Where'd you get?
I think it's pretty close. I think it's black wins on the board, but it looks like maybe white has a bit more.
Yeah. So this is really, this whole play here has been just really nicely timed.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, a natural sequence here. Black might try to force with this again, but maybe not immediately. Oh, he did it immediately.
And then
So this is a potential ko. There's a question of will white simply answer that.
Oh, right.
White also has the choice of moving in here once, or maybe playing moves like this first.
Oh, threatening to.
And threatening black
Right.
also. So white actually has a choice of leaving that for the time being.
Wait, you're saying that white could potentially.
Potentially die, but he's going to make some trouble in the center first.
Coming back against,
This alone is already more than 10 points gain here. So this is going to be about 30 points lost. And if white can get something like save these two stones and ruin these group, that would be big enough.
I need air.
That might be dangerous for white, but white might just play the one move, which would be forcing. It would be forcing once. So white might play that and then go back. And that might be a slight gain for white compared to not playing anything at all. After that, white would play something like that. Oh, they started the ko. Okay, we've got a ko going in that corner.
You asked for it, you got it.
Okay, white cut. And black takes the ko. And now it's a chance for white to play something like this as a ko threat, or maybe this sequence first.
It feels a little, this is just me talking here, but it feels a little like white is...
Oh, sorry, there was a cut here. He must have played a cut just now.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some forcing moves here that we sort of missed. So it's white's turn to find a ko threat. You want me to try an explanation of the ko? Oops, he just played the one cut and played here. Now that is a technique that players sometimes will use. This exchange here is not necessarily bad for white. In fact, it allows, when white does start the ko, it allows white to take the ko first. But actually white should have, oh yes, so Sedol played here. And white's probably going to play here. I think this is the reasonable looking move. It's a big move. And then it looks like the game is coming to a close. Black will play some forcing moves on the left side. And then black will maybe finish this off.
All right, so we are coming down to the sort of. I still feel like it's edge of the seat. I mean, you can't call it, right?
No.
Right.
Not yet. I'm
You're
trying to
you're
count
a guy
right
who
now.
knows his end game. Yeah, this is game one. It's a 5-game match. It's Google DeepMind's AlphaGo has been given as good as it's getting with Sedol. It is still anybody's game. I think to describe the atmosphere as electric would be.
Yeah, white has a lot of territory.
White has a lot of territory. It's almost like he just sort of manufactured it. It's like, oh, I need some territory here. Let me just do that. This reminds me. It reminds me of when an amateur like me plays a pro, and I'm looking, at the middle game, and I'm thinking, look at all my territory, and the pro doesn't have very much.
And it suddenly appears.
And then it's all these sort of little moves, and I look and I'm like, how did that's what this feels like. That's what this feels like.
I think black's going to win on the board, but we'll have trouble giving
Paying
Comey.
Comey. Yeah, that's what I'm feeling too. That's absolutely. Just the end game here. The end game play. The end game play starting here.
Yeah, this whole side was interesting and well played.
Think we saw any mistakes in this?
Well, yeah, the sliding move here. Maybe he shouldn't push out first, but basically this is the trade that white was sort of aiming at throughout.
For a long
and,
ride.
And it was a kind of a success, I think. And the play here, it was a nice play here, and the whole sequence where white moved back to here was well played, I think. Yes.
I gotta say, as somebody who's been playing, Go for almost 40 years now, to see a computer playing at this level is really just blowing my mind. I mean, is this the game? Okay.
Well, the fact that it allows black to save the one stone like this is why I didn't like that.
This is I didn't like this
Yeah,
one, right? Because this is was this 2 points?
Well, if black does save it, it's going to be a bit more than a 2-point profit. It's more like 3 points.
3 points. Okay.
3 or 4 points. Sorry, 4 points.
Right. Which is.
And actually, it's actually better for white when white gets to play a move here. So that would calculate to less than that, less than half of that. So it's more like more than 1 point, but less than 2 points.
Folks, this is what you're dealing with at this level. It's that kind of.
Well, actually, there's the method of calculating the difference, and you have the added product of the two results to get the median.
The difference, right?
And so you get a fraction. You can get all sorts of fractions in these calculations. So we get to practice our arithmetic.
I knew there was going to be math involved at some point.
Yeah, but people don't like it when I throw thirds of points and sixths of points to them. So I'm not going to say that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is endgame. This is just firming up the. There's not a lot of left here, and they're not even bothering.
Well, yeah. Well, black's playing some forcing moves. He has a lot of sente yosei points that he's playing first, and then I think the reasonable move is for him to move back to the lower left, unless black takes the opportunity to capture this one stone.
Yeah, this is becoming big.
That's what they call gyaku yosei, or a reverse sente yosei. This is a sente move for white. White can still play it just about any time, and it's locally it's 3 points, just in the capture here and the stone that black is just put in here. Well, it's 2 points actually, 2 points plus the potential forcing of this, which is potentially another point. So it's it's forcing 2.5 points, and it's pretty valuable at this point. So provided black thinks he can win the ko, that's another thing he might be thinking of doing. But as far as the calculation is concerned, playing a move here is the larger move. But black might still want to continue with a few more forcing moves in the center.
Black's just played the
He took the one stone.
Took the one stone.
And white will answer that with pushing once here. Maybe pushing once here, and then it's still probably a big move to come back here.
Well, folks, if you're
I think we're going to have enough stones.
you're
Maybe
you're-
it's going to be
you're-
pretty close.
Oh wow, we are. You're
And we can
witnessing
see-
history. What can I tell you?
Yeah.
That's what this is. This is
And we can
one
see
way or the
AlphaGo
other.
is in its last 7 minutes. 7 minutes and 50 seconds. But you see, once the ko in the lower left corner
It's just-
is settled, there's going to be nothing left.
Right. So the game is.
And so this is pretty good use of time.
management.
Yeah. Now this is going to be forcing. This is forcing against the black group. Black has
Black
to do
still
something.
has to live, right?
For instance, like this, or black could play this one, or this one. Anything to protect that weak point in the black's group.
Right.
And
To
white's played one forcing move. This is pretty big. The second
This would
forcing
be
move
next
would
one
be
here.
this. And then coming back here would be a reasonable sequence for white. Otherwise, if white thinks he has enough ko threats to win the ko, he might go after the ko.
Go after the
Which
ko,
is
right.
also, if white can win the ko, it's really big. If white cannot win it, then actually that would be
just-
big too, but this is a pretty big forcing move here. So it's at least two and a third points just
Right.
locally, and then there's the extra potential here. So it's pretty close to 3 points. It's still a fraction.
so-
Okay, white did play this
Yeah,
exchange.
just to also set this up, one way or the other, this is, it went ahead, right, did that, okay.
I'm expecting this move.
So you're so confident you're just gonna,
I'm leaving it on the board.
okay.
Yeah. I can always take it off.
No, it's fine.
There's still some forcing moves that white can play against black's territory here. Oh, there we go. Moves like this. That's going to be forcing, but actually black. Yeah. Oh, but he didn't.
Just went ahead and straight. Right. So once this historic game finishes, they'll be counting it. There will be a result. We will then wrap up here. I believe there's going to be a press conference after this, which we will go and see what folks have to say. Whoever wins, and then we will be back here again tomorrow for round two. And I tell you, if they're all like this, we're going to need to eat our Wheaties for sure. I mean, compared to the games from the fall, which were relatively peaceful games, this has been more like a slugfest. It's really the strength of both players has just been phenomenal, right?
And yeah, the fighting was very exciting and well played, I think.
Eric Schmidt from Alphabet, parent company of Google, said yesterday that no matter who wins, it's a win for humanity. And I got to tell you, watching this game, I got to say that's right. This is just superb. Half point. I don't know for who. No?
I don't think it's going to be that close.
Really? Okay.
Okay, at this point, there's two large moves. There's this capture here, which is 4 points,
4 points.
here, and then some extra here. That counts as 1.5 points, so that's 5.5, which is 3 points here. And then, let's see, this is reduced to 2 points. So it's 3 2/3. 3 2/3, 4 2/3. So that one is bigger.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 5. Oh, wait a minute. It's 3 points here. And that's 4 points. So that's 2 points here, 5 points, and 2/3. 5 2/3. I said this is. So this is maybe slightly bigger, but it involves a ko.
Okay.
And so it's 1/6 of the point bigger by the calculation. But 1/6 of the point is something that it can be canceled, but the player who has more ko threats is going to gain more than that when you have a ko situation. So it's pretty hard to say which of these is bigger.
Again, you would think that that would play to AlphaGo's strengths in terms of being able to calculate that.
Well, at this point, even a human would probably just read out all of the moves. Well, we're pretty close to the end of the game, actually.
Yeah.
It would be relatively for a human to read out all of the moves.
Okay.
A pro.
A pro.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm not asking you to do it.
I mean, I can react.
And just an excuse to say why I was having so much trouble here. Looking at the board from this angle, it's much more difficult, I find. It's slightly easier to do it on that board. But talking while I'm trying to count the score is really difficult for me sometimes. So it took me a long time to do that calculation. So now AlphaGo has only 5 minutes left, but
As you say, it's got six periods of 30 seconds apiece.
Of
so
course.
that's really not. And there's almost nothing. I think with these, once these two are played out, it's all
it's going to be small in games,
one and
pretty
two,
obvious
1 and
moves.
2 point
Yeah.
moves. Wow, it's everybody's trying to count it out.
Yeah, I'm trying to count it again. I think I'm getting confused here. Yeah.
One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
I think maybe the game ended.
No, I don't think so because it looks like E is still counting.
No, I think he resigned.
Wow, I think you're right. Wow. Wow. Man, how could you tell that?
Well, there's a white stone in a weird place. I think he placed that stone to show he resigned.
Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah,
congratulations to
AlphaGo.
to AlphaGo.
Yeah.
That
I think we're
is-
going to have an official announcement
Yeah, we have to
about the
right,
result.
Right.
But it looks pretty clear to me
It was
that
feeling a little
Sedol
good.
was resigned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was feeling a little.
He was maybe ahead on the board, I think. I was
But couldn't
I was
pay- couldn't pay the
recalculating
Comey,
just to
right?
make sure. And I was in the process, so I can't really say. Oh, he's revising that move. At that point, I think the game was still in the. Yeah.
All right, so we don't have an official thing, but it's pretty.
Maybe Fanghui was not in the room, actually. Oh, well, there is someone in the room.
You're pretty comfortable calling it for AlphaGo, though, aren't you?
Yeah, AlphaGo won.
Okay.
AlphaGo was winning, and it looked like Sedol resigned.
Well, that's a computer program has just beaten the 9
Wow.
professional.
Yeah, it's happened once. It's probably going to happen again now.
Oh, geez.
This is
Well, you had predicted they were going to
Pretty-
win
I
5-zip. That's
yeah, that's
that is now.
a big surprise, I think. Yeah, and Lee Sedol was showing that how he thinks he should have played, and I think that's another Korean professional standing behind him. Maybe.
And I see that's Fan Hui.
And then it's Fan Hui.
Yeah.
He's not declaring who won the game, but I think it's pretty clear that Lee Sedol won.
All right, folks, you witnessed it. You saw it.
Sorry,
It was-
AlphaGo won.
AlphaGo won, and you saw it here. This was, I mean, right out of the bat, the first game,
Yeah.
and AlphaGo takes down Lee Sedol.
Yeah, I was sort of expecting Lee Sedol to win, actually.
Yeah.
I wasn't very sure of myself, though.
So, just quick, because I think we're going to be wrapping momentarily. Okay, we'll keep going then. But
Yeah. Well, the fight in
just
the
a
beginning
quick-
of the
a quick,
game, it was a
recap
big fight
here.
in the beginning
Big
of the game.
fight.
I think Lee Sedol thought that he could outfight the AlphaGo
okay,
just by starting a big fight there. And it was really interesting. It was a good fight, I think. And through the middle game, Lee Sedol was actually looking pretty good. And we can see the players here. I think maybe some people can see the players actually going, well, it's Lee Sedol, and I think he has a professional standing behind him who's making some comments on the end game.
okay,
And I think that at that point, the game was sort of undecided.
right,
I certainly didn't know who was winning.
right.
And Lee Sedol is showing a sequence where he's taking more territory in that lower right corner and allowing White to play that point he just pointed at in the upper left corner. And it was just such a complicated end game. There's a lot of things that they have to think about.
But this is just a massive.
Yeah, he's revising the end game. He's showing the mistake that AlphaGo made, actually.
Right.
Showing that he gained a little bit right there. And we have a result.
There's our official result.
Yeah.
All right. Well, congratulations to AlphaGo for an amazingly well played
yes.
game. That's. I guess you'll be studying this game.
Yeah, I'm happy to see it fighting so much and changing its style. Yeah.
Really incredible game and an incredible result. And thank you all for watching. We'll be back tomorrow, same time,
with the second game.
for round 2.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching, and congratulations again to both players, and especially to AlphaGo. I was feeling a little bit when I was trying to do my comments, feeling, it feels a little good. I'm not sure they can pay me.